What is up, everybody? Welcome to MavCast. This is going to be a little bit of a different kind of stream because it's something that we've been talking about quite a bit over the last couple of years, but it's been brought to the limelight recently with recent events in gaming, especially regarding some Xbox games and stuff like that. And it's been an interesting conversation. Now, it's a conversation that was starting to die down a little bit. But since Destin Legarie from IGN had decided to make a video on his own channel trying to negate this topic and also call everyone who believes in such things as insane, decided, hey, we'll bring the sanity back to the realm of the conversation and have some fun here on this channel. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in to this stream. You all rock. I hope you had an amazing Thanksgiving weekend. And if you celebrate Thanksgiving holiday weekend, long break needed for many people out there. Shout out to the retail workers and everything who have been working extra and long and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you all rock. I see you guys saying there's like the voice is not synced up, and I kind of see that too. Interesting. I never had that problem before, so I don't even know what to do about it because I see it and it's weird, but I don't know why it's happening. This is like a first time for that, so I don't know. Yeah, I see like the video is like a little late, lagging behind my voice, so it seems right to you, Alvin, but yeah. So interesting. Test. I'm hoping it catches up. I don't know. I'm gonna try doing some stuff real quick. Maybe turn off my camera, back on. I'm going to close out of my camera and bring it back up. See if that helps at all. Because I think it's maybe just some camera delay or lag. Let's see here. Apologize about this, guys. Let's see video. Test. It is still doing it. Okay. All right. Maybe it's because I have way too much shit open on my PC. That could be the case too. So let me try limiting some of this stuff real quick. Bear with me, everybody. I apologize. Technical difficulties. And that doesn't seem to be helping. That doesn't seem to be helping. So, Bold Alpha, how's it going? You had to show our channel to TSA last month because I had a Fun Speculation logo on your shirt. Hey, that's awesome, man. I appreciate it. Were they curious what that was, I'm guessing? Man, this is weird. Okay, let me try doing something else. Try and fix it this way. And is that better? Is that better? I think it might be a little bit better. It's so weird, man. I don't know. We'll just have to run with it, I guess. Hopefully it's not too distracting for everybody, but I don't know. I've already wasted enough time on the stream trying to mess with it, but appreciate you guys. Yeah, it's been an interesting conversation. So we're gonna have some fun talking about this. We talked about it on FSP. We've talked about it on Xbox Ultimate. We've talked about it on a lot of our shows for a long time. But more so with the conversation about games media and just maybe games media being inherently kind of broken in general. But there's been a lot more conversation specifically to Xbox recently and how this Xbox tax and what is it and what does it mean and is it real? Is it not real? Well, I'm kind of thinking that it's a byproduct, and I'm going to explain. First off, I kind of want to explain what the term Xbox tax means to me, and also kind of the overall general idea behind that. Okay, so I think for me, the Xbox tax is the discrepancy that can be seen in the overall review scores and everything towards the Xbox brand, but it's not necessarily it's not like a grand collaboration or conspiracy where they have meetings trying to find out ways to hurt Xbox or to like, oh, we can't give this score because Xbox is involved or whatever like that. I think there's just an inherent preference or bias in the general thought process that goes on with a lot of games media that also permeates through a lot of the communities as well, towards what Xbox games are, towards the feeling of needing to be maybe a little bit more critical, and then also giving other things passes where Xbox does not get that same treatment, right? And then the effect of that is upon the review scores and then the sentiment of those games that we see, and we look at them and like, this doesn't make sense. How can this game be judged like this and get these kind of scores when it's of this level of quality, but these other games did not have that same kind of treatment towards them, and they scored higher and all those things because they didn't have that overcriticalness towards them or that overall negative sentiment towards them, right? Now, for me, that's not like a grand conspiracy where they all get together and plan these things, right? For me, it's just a byproduct of the overall fact that the games media is broken in the first place, and the way that they let this influence of preference and bias and all these kind of things affect the outlook, and the scores, therefore, are representative of that. Does that make sense? I hope it does, but I'm trying to put it how I kind of see what Xbox tax means to me, right? There's been examples where the same kind of thing goes on in games media, where we've broken down numerous times, to where it's not even necessarily regarding Xbox. You see the media bias or preferences or agenda-based thought processes go towards things like Jedi Survivor, where they got free passes on numerous things, even though they did acknowledge all the issues at launch, but for some reason they didn't matter. Or all of a sudden now you have a game like Hogwarts Legacy absolutely blacklisted from some sites and not deciding not to review it or even play it because of potential social issues that they deem upon themselves worthy of absolutely giving the game 0 credit or not even discussing, because they felt like it wasn't worthy of even releasing, or that anybody should play the game or talk about the game, regardless of how the quality of it and everything in the game, right? And that has absolutely kind of gone on to where the game has been pretty much blacklisted from the Game Awards for the same kind of thought processes from the same kind of games media and everything, where the same kind of panelists or the same people that are reviewing these games, right? So there's been people trying to defend this kind of thing, saying that, well, it's just, that's just the opinion or a preference of the individual reviewers. Well, for me, it's not the way it always used to be. Gaming and games media always used to be a little bit more objective based, and they used to be a little bit more trying to set themselves aside with the personal preferences and biases in certain aspects of games to judge quality. The quality aspect has gone out the window at this point. Now it's just everybody's personal opinion, because that's what gets more attention. That's what gets more clicks. That's what gets more traction on these websites that are showcased on sites like Metacritic, where they showcase those scores. And the more controversial sometimes a review can be, the more traction it's going to get. That's why you see places like IGN and other websites showcase the same tweet over and over and over again, because it's getting so much traction. And why is that traction there? Because it's a very controversial take a lot of times. That goes with the way that some people even run their podcast channels or their YouTube channels, or some people, like the one guy that tried to knock Starfield for its loading screen or UI before the game even released, to create something that's going to be so controversial and ridiculous. It's going to get so much traction, therefore getting that person money on Twitter for being monetized. This happens across games media, happens across all things, and it's just a reflection on the state of the world that we live in, with how news is. And it's not just with games media, it's with all media. But it has an effect. It has an effect on the perception of games. It has an effect on how games can succeed. It has an effect on the overall perception of how good a game is. It has an effect on if we potentially get sequels of some of these games and all of these kind of things, right? So a lot of these sites will take it into their own accord to be social justice warriors, or they will take it into their own accord to decide what's right or what's wrong and push forward their own agenda within their reviews or within their articles to try and let their own ego and own preferences and own biases be the way that we all should perceive things. And that's not the way things should work, right? That's not the way things should work in all media. That's not the way things should work, especially in games media, because it does have an effect. It's a detriment to gaming. It's a detriment to the developers. It's a detriment to the work that was put in on a lot of these games. It's a detriment to the individual artists, the animators, the testers, the creative directors, the producers, the composers, all of these people that put in all this work, all of a sudden get slighted for something that's completely out of their control. And games like Hogwarts Legacy get blacklisted, or games where they decided they're going to rush the product out and release a broken game because of preference gets a complete pass, because the games media has dictated that that is acceptable in this case. It's not acceptable in other cases, but in this case, it's acceptable, right? Why is it acceptable in this case and not others? Games media doesn't have an answer for that. Therefore, games media is broken. There's no reflection from games media on the transparency of those kind of things. And that's the problem, right? Obviously, here on this channel, a little bit biased. I'm a preferred Xbox. I'm an Xbox gamer. Been invested in the Xbox ecosystem for a long time. I prefer Xbox-y kind of games. I prefer RPGs. I prefer RTSs, those kind of things, right? I prefer racing games, all this kind of stuff. But it seems like games media has tended to drift the way of preferring certain types of games, and those things have created this inherent bias or preference that has been reflective of the review scores, not judging the games for what they are, but judging the games for the fact that they're not what they like. They're not the kind of game that they prefer. Third-person action adventures, story-based, very cinematic experiences. I just got Final Fantasy 16 Black Friday because it was $40. I wasn't going to pay full price for it. I'm a Final Fantasy fan. Thought it was a good enough deal. Starting to play it. Heavily cinematic so far. Extremely cinematic. So far, it is just an action game. No wonder that game was a PS5 exclusive, because it was made pretty much for that audience, and that game was widely praised. Not a lot was talked about the shortcomings of what makes a Final Fantasy game, and the fact that they left out a lot of those things in lieu of becoming an action game geared towards that audience. Instead, it was actually praised for a lot of those things. Oh, Final Fantasy. Oh, they're breaking new ground. Oh, finally they changed the formula. Oh, yes, that's great. Meanwhile, also games like Mario Wonder come out, which Pong has done a great job on some of our shows pointing out that a game like that is praised for being a Mario game, and it's Mario, and it's awesome that it's Mario, and it's cool. Yeah, I have no issues with that. But those same kinds of people that are praising a game for being what it always has been are also knocking a game like Starfield for being too much tied up into a tired formula that Bethesda themselves have created. How can the same kind of people be saying that one kind of genre is tired and they're sick of it, meanwhile praise a game like Mario that has never changed the formula? It's the same kind of thing we've been playing since the 80s. I don't understand. But specifically, I wanted to go down this path and do this video and this stream because it's been a little bit overdue, right? we talked a lot about this stuff on our podcast and all these kind of things, but and this conversation was dying down. I was like, am I gonna do a separate video or a MavCast just talking about this kind of stuff when it's like it's been talked about so much by so many people and it's kind of being talked to death and all this stuff. And it was kind of dying down. I was just happy to, do our co-stream for the Game Awards, which is coming up, and just watch the Game Awards and be happy for whatever's shown there and kind of accept things for what they are, right? Then Destin Legarie. I have no issues personally with Destin. I think he does some really good content. I think he's one of the better people at IGN, which I have not a lot of respect for a lot of people there. I think he's in a smaller group that I do have some respect for. But in this video that he came out to defend IGN and try and call people like me or like you guys in the chat and a lot of people in the Xbox community insane, I think he is absolutely dead wrong here. And I will break apart his video now. We're going to go through it. We're going to watch it. And I'm going to discuss the topics that he brought to light. And we'll see. Maybe you guys think it has merit. Maybe it doesn't. But, no disrespect to him, right? But I felt like it was worthy of conversation to actually have some discourse based on what his thought process is and what and the things that he's saying. So we're going to watch it together, and I'll pause it occasionally, and we'll talk about some feedback and stuff that we have towards Destin, and it's going to be interesting. Now, to note also, after this video, he had put on Twitter and asked for people to send their evidence of Xbox tax and all these kind of things, which was supplied in heavy numbers. And then he did do a follow-up live stream where he just basically called it all excuses or BS, or like, oh, that's just one instance, or this is just one instance, or this is just that, or this is just that. Well, how come this happened, or how come this happened? We can have that conversation time and time again and look at numerous examples, but we're going to go through here. I want to pick apart his video and we'll kind of have a discussion about it. So I'm going to bring it up. Let's have some fun. And let's see here. I gotta go back. I had it all set, but when I was messing with my camera stuff, it screwed up. So let's see. Here we go. I hate when I have stuff ready and then some kind of technical difficulty kind of ruins everything. But yeah, let's get into this, guys. All right, so shout out to Destin. Gonna watch this video now.
I have to talk to you guys about this Xbox tax trend that I keep seeing people talk about online, because I think it's absolute nonsense.
Okay. Why?
So first of all, I have seen a lot of people talking about the Xbox tax, and they're usually relating it to Xbox not getting a Game of the Year nomination. Many people felt that Starfield should have gotten an Xbox Game of the Year nomination, but you know what? That game was contentious. No matter how you look at it, that game either scored incredibly well or it was sort of middling. So the fact that it didn't get nominated doesn't mean that it's a bad game. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that it was a bit of a contentious title and it didn't get nominated for Game of the Year.
Okay, so I'm already having problems. All right, so first off, he's just at this point saying or a lot of the time that he sees it regarding Starfield, right, and not being nominated for Game of the Year. That was just one instance where this has been brought up, and it's been brought up numerous times in the past. And actually at the launch of Starfield, right, when there was so much negativity, and then the articles keep coming out time and time again, negative posts about Starfield, even from sites like IGN, which I'm going to go ahead and say IGN is not the only culprit here. And in fact, there's a lot of games media. And in fact, IGN's also not one of the worst. You can look at sites like Metro, PC Gamer, Jim Sterling and some of those reviews that had dropped, right, as actually way worse examples of what's going on with games media. But IGN is the biggest, and they have the brightest light upon them. Therefore, they are going to be talked about a lot. Now, when it came to Starfield, I was in heavy defense mode of Starfield, as was some others out there as well, about this weird mentality that was going on, all of a sudden picking things apart and attacking things. I already had conceded, and if you go back and look at our predictions, that I didn't think Starfield was going to get nominated for Game of the Year because it was such a stellar year this year. Overall, the games media didn't seem that they were liking it as much as a lot of the community did. But that in itself is not what Xbox tax is. But the main issue I have here is he's using the review scores as an excuse for it being a contentious title, when we are discussing the fact of the Xbox tax and all these things affecting the review scores. You can't go and say, we decided this is contentious, or we decided as the games media that it is deserving of this kind of score, therefore this bias doesn't exist. That is inherently what we are discussing in the first place. There is no logic to that thinking. It is absolutely bypassing the conversation at hand. You are then accepting the fact that you and the rest of games media is 100% correct, and using that as the metric to call the rest of the community insane. Make that make sense. NC Ghost of Low Road with a $5 super chat says, "What's up, Mav? Blessings. I'm just dropping in to show my support. I'll be catching you on replay after I get off." Right. Pause. Have a good one. I appreciate you, and thanks to everybody else for coming through as well. And again, it's like an acceptance that the picture that is painted by the games media should be accepted as the reality. That I have issue with.
There are several games that are multi-platform that did get nominated for Game of the Year that are also released on Xbox. Off the top of my
We ain't talking about multiplats here, Destin. If they released on PlayStation and stuff like that, obviously it doesn't matter.
head, Alan Wake is one of them. But the thing that really bothers me is that people keep talking about how the media is too hard on Xbox, or Xbox doesn't get a fair shake. And yet channels like mine exist where I genuinely praise Xbox. I criticize a lot of PlayStation's practices, and I find this whole conversation about an Xbox tax quite bizarre.
We're not talking about your YouTube channel, Destin. We're talking about games media and the websites and the review scores that exist. Obviously, there's lots of pro YouTube Xbox channels, lots of pro PlayStation YouTube channels, lots of pro Nintendo YouTube channels. The fact that you're lumping your own private YouTube channel into the same conversation as the larger games media doesn't make sense. Your channel exists separately from IGN for a reason, so that way you can share your own thoughts that may be more pro Xbox, which actually kind of, in a weird way, contradicts what he's saying in the first place, that maybe he has thoughts that he can't express on IGN, that therefore he needs to have a whole separate channel to discuss his pro Xbox takes.
Are there a few outlets who have gotten it wrong or have been rather unnecessarily scathing towards Xbox? Yeah, and it's weird.
Okay, so you just admitted everything you're about to say we're calling insane. You literally, in this one sentence, just confirmed the reality of everything you're trying to argue against in the rest of this video. Are there some sites that will go harder on Xbox and stuff like that? Yes. Is it weird? Yes. That is inherently what we are discussing. Meanwhile, you started out the video trying to dismiss it. And meanwhile, the rest of this video, you're also going to try to dismiss it, when in the fact you just literally said this should exist.
When it happens,
there's never been a better time.
Sorry, I don't have YouTube Premium.
To get away. With a great deal on the Hyundai you've always...
the PC gamer thing I'll talk about in a little bit was a little surprising, to say the least.
Yeah?
But just keep an eye out for things from that author if you don't think, if you don't want to align with what they think. Like, I never.
So it doesn't have an effect? Like, oh, we're just supposed to like, hey, you know what? That author's an idiot, right? Just don't ever look at that one author again. Do you think most people even actually look at who the author of the review is? No, they just see the website. They just see it's IGN or Game Rant or Games Radar or Kotaku or whatever the fuck site is talking. And whoever wrote the article is just on behalf of that website. That is the general consensus that happens, in the general sense that when people read these articles, they're not absolutely picking apart the one individual person. They're not picking apart the one individual person. They're looking at it as the review. And in fact, on Meta, which is a larger issue at hand because Meta is a problem within and of itself, it just basically states a quote from the reviewer and the score. And that's where a lot of things come from. Now, to actually say that it basically we should just ignore this and that it doesn't matter because we can just ignore that one person's take means that it has no effect, or means that it basically doesn't matter to the larger audience, or matter to the game, or matter anything. It just should only matter to the individual person. For me personally, I don't look at reviews and think, oh, that's going to change my outlook on how I played this thing. But overall, when you look at the general consensus that has been permeated out there from games media, it has an effect. There's actually been research to this. Shout out to a nerd propellant who had sent me a DM where there's actually been studies about this and the actual effect that reviews and people that have read negative reviews can actually affect their perception on the game that they're playing, and actually review it themselves more negatively than if they had read a positive review about the game. People that had played the same game had different outlooks based on the articles that they had read about it. That's hive mind mentality. That is a perception-based reality that we all live in. When everybody says something is shit, your subconscious is all of a sudden thinking, hey, this is probably going to be shit. Then when you play it, you're looking more for the shit. Things have an effect. It doesn't affect me personally. It doesn't affect certain people that are more in tune with things personally, but we're gonna get into this here because this also contradicts his earlier statement about how Starfield was seen as contentious and all those things, pointing to the overall reviews. You literally are pointing to that as fact, saying it's a contentious title. It had mixed reviews and all these things. Therefore, it is what it is. Meanwhile, now we should just ignore it and don't read this person's articles anymore. But now you are saying the perception from those reviewers is also reality? So is it real? Is it reality? Is it the general consensus? Is that what the game is? Or is it just personal opinion? Some kind of biased preferential take?
Never understand why people get so upset about like what somebody thinks online when you could just read somebody else. Like, if you like Starfield, go check out Paul Tassie's stuff. I've had him on the show many times. Paul Tassie adores Starfield. But you know who else talks about Xbox's shortcomings? Phil Spencer. Phil Spencer in 2022 called Xbox's release schedule a disaster. You have to take
this whole point of this conversation myself. Like, what is the point of this? Calling 2022? Are we in 2023? Aren't we in 2023 right now? Aren't we discussing more of the recent conversations? Why does games media keep pointing to 2022 as excuses that Xbox was bad? Yeah, Xbox didn't have a lot of releases in 2022. We already know that. We have absolutely criticized them here on this channel as well. That's something the Xbox community actually does. They will actually be critical of Xbox when they feel like they are falling short. Some in the Xbox community don't like that, but it's something that we do. But you're going to go and point to 2022 when we all know they were short on releases and point to the fact that Phil himself had said it as a reason that the Starfield and things that happen in 2023 exist? This makes absolutely no fucking sense. It's just pulling things out of their ass to try and dismiss the conversation.
Take an honest look at what happened with Xbox, starting with the launch of the Xbox Series X and forward. And if you want to go back even further, you can take a look at the original Xbox One and see what happened with that launch. It was contentious.
So? Are you saying that is a reason why this exists today? Therefore, you're just proving the point again. You're proving the point that those things may have had an impact on your own beliefs and preferences and biases today, inherently, potentially changing your outlook. Otherwise, what is the point of even bringing this up? What is the point of bringing up old-ass things when we're talking about things going on in 2023?
We all know that console launched and it had just the worst PR it could possibly have, talking about putting DRM into their games. The CEO at the time, I'm blanking on his name for some reason, but anyway, he said stuff like buying Xbox 360 was just
Don Matrick.
Just isn't smart to do when you're talking directly to your consumers. And it's just been sort of a bizarre reaction that I've seen online to this Xbox tax. Look,
which has no reflection on anything that you just talked about whatsoever regarding 2022 and also the Don Matrick era. We all recognize that they had problems. Does that matter for an individual game? No.
I love Xbox, but you can love a product and recognize its shortcomings.
Yes, we do, and the Xbox community does many times. Does the PlayStation community do the same thing? Does the Nintendo community do the same thing? Does the games media hold PlayStation to the same standard that they hold Xbox? That is the conversation, Destin. We criticized Xbox for not being at the Game Awards last year. We criticized Xbox for the lack of first-party games in 2022, saying that they shouldn't have allowed that to happen. Does that have any effect on what we're trying to discuss here regarding 2023 and the Game Awards and also the game scores that potentially could be affected by this preferential bias towards PlayStation and Nintendo and not Xbox?
I love a lot of PlayStation games also, but I don't like a lot of the corporate strategies that are implemented that cost the player more money. And I feel like that's a big reason why I'm seen as an Xbox fanboy, because I'm very critical about the corporate strategies. But if you look at the content that I produce about the games, it's glowing for PlayStation. Xbox has had a lot of problems in the games category.
Not this year, buddy.
Infinite needed to be delayed to launch in the state that it launched. I stand by that. I love the Halo Infinite campaign, but multiplayer took a long time to hit its stride.
Besides Redfall, I'll add that.
Right. Starfield was delayed a year. Had it come out in 2022 when it was supposed to, there is a chance that it would have been nominated for Game of the Year. Granted, Elden Ring also came out that year, so I think we can all agree that Elden Ring likely would have taken it. But let's talk about a few of these posts that I've seen, because I just find it fascinating that people who I like and respect, like Post Up here, are talking about this Xbox tax.
Oh, this is going to be
Modern
good.
Warzone tweeted, Modern Warfare 3 is the best COD multiplayer we've had in years, but somehow is also the worst reviewed Call of Duty game of all time. I don't understand it, especially when you compare scores to some of the other games like Vanguard. Do you think these reviews are deserved? And he also
very fair post and tweet, and that wasn't Post Up. That's Doug Dagnabbit. So anyway, but that's a very fair question.
Also talks about Doug Dagnabbit, who says, genuinely don't understand Call of Duty getting its worst reviews of all time with Modern Warfare 3, especially not the multiplayer. Now he's correlating the fact that Xbox just closed on the Activision Blizzard deal with it getting poor review scores. That is insane to me.
Okay, first off, Destin, I will say this. I personally don't necessarily think this Call of Duty thing has necessarily anything to do with Xbox, but it speaks to a larger issue we were talking about at hand in earlier part of this stream with hive mind mentality and games media deciding what's right and wrong and trying to put out there and acting as like social justice warriors in a way, trying to basically downplay certain things or decide when certain things are acceptable or when they're not, right? IGN gave the campaign a 4 for Modern Warfare 3. That is the same score they gave Gollum. Think about that for a second. Is there any way or any world in which the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 campaign is in the same quality and enjoyment level as that piece of trash game Gollum? IGN seems to think so. Xbox tax with Call of Duty, I don't know. I think this is something even bigger that he actually mentioned at the beginning of his second stream that I think points the picture of what's going on with Call of Duty.
You think that journalists are playing Call of Duty thinking, well, Xbox owns this now, I have to give it a bad score. Like, that's the narrative that people are trying to say is causing the Xbox tax, and that's insanity to me. Here's what I actually think happened. I think Activision Blizzard, who we heard rumors of canceling this particular release of Call of Duty, rushed it out because they have to hit their yearly cadence to get the game out. And it's just subpar to many people who are reviewing the product. I don't think that's that crazy. What's more likely, that there's a grand conspiracy by the entire industry to be negative about Xbox, or that one Call of Duty was kind of bad?
When you have the Call of Duty community themselves saying that this multiplayer is the best or one of the best Call of Duty multiplayers they've ever played, there is a disconnect here. And Destin here, this is a big issue that I have, because what Destin's trying to do here, and what some in the games media and some people I see on Twitter and social media are trying to paint this Xbox tax conversation, media bias preference, and all that kind of stuff as some grand conspiracy where they have meetings and all these kind of things. And that's what they think people are trying to say. That is not the issue. That is not what we're trying to say. That is easily dismissed. That is the thing, that you're trying to lump this idea of what we're trying to say into something that it's not, so that way you can throw it out the window like it's some crazy conspiracy theory and everybody's fucking insane. While you're taking people that have brought up valid points that he just brought up on the screen and read that have no basis in this conversation that he's having now. Did either of those people point towards a grand conspiracy from Xbox where every games media outlet gets together to trash on a game because Xbox owns it? That's not what those people are saying. And those are the responses, and those are the posts that he decided to bring up right before this topic, right before his point. It makes no damn sense. Why would you go from that to all of a sudden thinking these people are trying to think that it's a cabal, so that way you can easily dismiss it? We're talking about the overall preferential treatment towards other platforms like PlayStation and Nintendo comparatively to Xbox. And in this case, the Call of Duty thing is a whole nother different animal. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
And the multiplayer, for the most part, if it was reviewed separately, was a bit more positive than the campaign. The campaign was quite negative. Even influencers who were paid to play the campaign said it wasn't great.
Not great and a 4. Two very different things. You can have an average Call of Duty campaign or even a bad Call of Duty campaign. But I'll argue that a bad Call of Duty campaign or an average Call of Duty campaign is way better than a golem.
The fact that you think this is like something about it has nothing to do with Xbox. Call of Duty is just a situation that is very convoluted and complicated, and it has nothing to do with the fact that it was purchased by Xbox. And by the way, here's the tweet from Doug Dagnabbit. He runs Modern Warzone. So Doug has a vested interest in Call of Duty doing well. Because
you don't have a vested interest in IGN doing well, Destin? You don't have a vested interest in Games Media showing that they have some kind of integrity? Why does this video exist?
Because he runs the main outlet that covers Call of Duty. So of course he's going to be like super vested in that game doing well. And no fault to you. Like if this video gets sent to Doug, like I'm not
And meanwhile, he also had said that people in the Call of Duty community have said it was not great. So like, do they have vested interest or not? From my experience, the Call of Duty community actually is harder on Call of Duty than general reviews have been over the last decade. In fact, the Call of Duty community has absolutely been critical and very hard on Call of Duty. A lot of these same people. But there is a disconnect here between what the Call of Duty community is saying about the multiplayer and Call of Duty in general versus what the games media is saying.
slamming him or anything like that. But like you have one source post, it's Doug, and then you source probably the tweet that he made. And then you talk about Charlie Intel, where you talk about PC Gamer. And I alluded to this a second ago. PC Gamer review says Modern Warfare 3 is not fun because Sledgehammer Games took a sledgehammer to the movement that Infinity Ward had in Modern Warfare 2. The reviewer calls slide canceling and faster mantling cheesy techniques. Now, I will say this. I think it's totally fine to question and critique reviews and how they're written. I think that's fine. But to say that the way that's written is anything to do with Xbox, it's insane to me.
Did Charlie Intel say that? What the fuck is he talking about? Why are you calling them insane? That's not what he said. Literally putting words into people's mouths. Why did he say that? I don't understand. Why did Destin say this? You're the one saying it, Destin. That's why it sounds insane.
It's absolutely insane to me. And I just had to say this because like I see people I like talking about this stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? That's not a thing.
So I got to say this too real quick. Why is it in his head that those posts are about Xbox? If they're not generally defensive and feeling that every post like this is about Xbox, those people did not say any damn thing about Xbox. Why is he bringing Xbox tax into that conversation with Call of Duty? You're creating that. Now, some people out there are pointing to that saying like, oh, you know, Xbox tax. And a lot of people I've seen like that are actually making a joke about it because, yes, like it reviewed lower and all that kind of stuff. So it's like easy to point to and joke about it saying like, oh, Xbox tax in full effect. I saw lots of posts there. I think, honestly, it's a larger issue at hand with game reviewers not even being in touch with the fucking actual game community and the games that people are actually playing and knowing what is quality or not. Or maybe they have another agenda. I told you I was going to speak about this, but in his other video that he did in a recap, he actually started talking about Bobby Kotick and the people at Activision wanted to be unionized and all that stuff and the development process of this game. What does that fucking have to do with it? That kind of pointed to me like they're trying to say that there was some kind of agenda from Games Media to actually punish Activision. In the same way that they punished Hogwarts Legacy. Rainï² with the $5 says he's making a straw man argument that no one is making. He is trying to gaslight gamers by telling them that what they see isn't real and that they are all crazy. Exactly, but he's pointing to things that they don't even make that argument. Why are you pointing to things that are not actually even in the realm of what you're trying to argue? You're just pointing to Call of Duty community members and community accounts that are bringing up the same kind of disparity that we are. Now, you are the one relegating that to the Xbox tax, sir. You are the one that's painting it in that picture. So you can then take that and call everybody insane. Why? Bold Alpha Wolfpack with the super generous $20 super chat. Appreciate you. It says, why isn't this COD being praised for letting you maintain your tens, even hundreds hours and dollars spent in game into next iteration of COD? Instead, it's being marred for campaign, like campaign made COD what it is. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. As well as you can point to a game like Black Ops 4 that didn't even fucking have a campaign. And it was not treated anywhere near what this Call of Duty is being treated. It's almost like Games Media decided that all of a sudden it's all of a sudden Call of Duty, we need to knock it down a peg. This shit's getting ridiculous. Let's just I can't give this above a 4 because, you know, it's just like, I can't believe they did this, you know, like they literally released a game before that didn't have a fucking campaign in it, period. Battlefield 2042 released broken and it didn't have a campaign, and it didn't even get treated like they're treating Modern Warfare 3. And Modern Warfare 3 is actually fairly complete. It actually has a campaign. It has zombies mode. It has the best multiplayer in a long time from the Call of Duty community and what they're saying. Meanwhile, it's getting 5s and 4s and shit from the Games Media. That is a problem with Games Media. It's Xbox tax is a byproduct of that same kind of mentality that you were just trying to defend right now. While you're trying to lump them together, it is a byproduct from this same kind of shit that you're using as an excuse to defend IGN and other Games Media about this whole topic. Makes no damn sense. Jay Rembert with the $2. Appreciate you. Says, those Spawn wave weirdos denied the tax exists. Clowns. Yeah. Because they probably perceive it like Destin is painting it here. Is there a cabal? Is there a group that gets together like the Illuminati and just like has these meetings and robed hoods and stuff and like hooded robes and candlelight and chant hymns and shit and like, we're down with Xbox, yo, we can't let this go. Phil Spencer is the devil. We have to make sure we punish them. They cannot. No, that's not what we're fucking talking about. Of course, that's insane. Dan Lazaro with a $5 super chat says, Destin rushed to defend his friends, jumped through all kinds of hoops to do so, and alienated a portion of his subs. His content is stale anyway. Wow. Yeah, and also I saw IGN on Destin's thread actually start coming out to defense of their database issues when they had actually forgotten to include Xbox on videos that they released with the upcoming games for 2023. Citing it as, oh, it was an issue with our database because we lost somebody and we were behind. Okay, fine. They said, we spotted it and fixed it. No, you didn't spot it. You didn't spot it. That video was up for 3 days. And Jasper from our channel, and Lord Jasper on YouTube, go check him out, pointed it out. Then y'all rushed to fix it after it was pointed out 3 days later. The shit that was crazy. The shit that was crazy is Max Scoville, who Jasper was trying to be professional and nice to, went and then called him a conspiracy theorist for just simply calling out his mistake, or IGN's mistake of leaving those tags off of the games. He said hashtag do better. Max called him a conspiracy theorist. Why is IGN so defensive when people call out their work? Largest games media outlet, period. Right? Have some fucking integrity.
By the way, if you like my channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. I don't think I'm, as an Xbox centric channel, denying the Xbox tax. I don't think I'm going to make a lot of friends with this one, but I had to say it. Continuing on.
You didn't have to say it. You didn't have to do this video, Destin, actually. Like, the fact that you're doing this video kind of paints IGN and you as a defensive over the whole thing, which actually leads more credibility to it. So maybe you shouldn't have done it. Maybe you should have let it dwindle and die and just done better at your job, and I let IGN do better at their job, and everybody else in games media try and do better at their jobs. Take criticism from a fan base that obviously feels a certain way and look at it and try and rationalize and realize why potentially that fan base feels that way instead of calling them insane.
Microsoft celebrates its this criticism I agree with. I think that this is phrased in a very strange way.
Yes. And there's numerous examples of this, Destin, but you just tried to say it doesn't exist and we're all insane. Your baby Farva with the $10 super chat says the problem with Destin is he knows he's a smart guy. He knows we're not talking about a coordinated conspiracy, but he acts like it is to try to diminish the legitimacy of our argument. That is 100%. 100% exactly what I'm saying here. He's trying to turn it into something that we're not saying to make it easily dismissible for the sake of defending games media and IGN and all these kind of things. Meanwhile, evidence is there. I don't get it.
Microsoft celebrates its conquest of Activision and the triumph of capitalism with a montage video that mashes up Modern Warfare, Halo, Diablo, Starfield, and more. Now, I have to imagine that this writer does not like capitalism. And the fact that they're talking about it like a conquest, every employee wanted this to happen.
So you admit that it can happen. You admit that it exists, but it doesn't exist and it doesn't happen. You don't. What? How? Like, what the fuck? Yeah, you just like look shocked as hell at that. Oh, you mean that somebody can have preferences and biases towards certain things and let that reflect their writing? Oh, yeah, I guess it is fucking possible. All of a sudden, because of this one little example? How about Dan Stapleton that pretty much said the same thing? IGN reviews editor. It said pretty much the same kind of thing on Twitter. Your baby Farva with the $2 says the same fan base who got him to 100K subs. Shameful. Yeah, and then Dan Lazaro with a 5 says he went on a 5-minute rant about why Xbox was bad, why people view them negatively, have a bias, and then in the same breath says Xbox tax is crazy. 100%. That's my thought. That's my thinking here. It's like you're saying that it has affected perception and preferences and biases, yet you're saying that it hasn't affected preferences and biases. So like to make up your mind, because you're pretty much saying that it has had an effect, but it also you're saying it's not real. So either it's real or it's not. And you're just making arguments time and time again that it is real while trying to call everybody insane.
Every employee who has stock is going to make a ton of money. Most of these bigger companies offer an employee stock purchase program, so everybody profited handsomely from this. And if you look at the tweets from the developers, like I just disagree with PC Gamer on this one, and that's fine. It's fine to have a healthy debate, but to say it's an Xbox tax, I think that's a little much.
Why? It's okay for them to make those kind of articles so we can have a healthy debate about it. Yeah, sure. But you don't think that affects people's perception over things? It has an effect on the way people think about things? Like, it does.
Now, Ham Solo also bringing up Call of Duty. Ham and Post, like I really like you guys, but I think you're just way off with this one. Modern Warfare 3 is stuck paying deference to a past that it seems to barely understand. Our review, 2 out of 5. Clickbait versus reality. Now, he links to the marketing material from Call of Duty talking about thank you and how well the game did. Thank you. More hours per player overall. Modern War MWZ is the most engaging third mode in history. Campaign players putting in more time per player. Like, those are retention statistics.
Okay.
Okay. The game can still be bad. The game can be bad and still sell well, right? Do you remember when Gran Turismo 7 launched and it was offline for like a week? But
the thing is here, Destin, is the Call of Duty community, yeah, they were a little disappointed in the campaign, but they're not saying the overall game and experience is bad. The media is. In fact, the engagement, what Pam was trying to point to, is telling a completely different story. What Ham's point was, if that was the reality, things would have died off a lot more already for Call of Duty. Instead, it's actually being played more than others in the past with player engagement, player retention. Those things actually are an important metric. TSWS Gaming with the $2 says, hey, look, Ma, I made, hey, dude, shout out to you. You're in this video.
But it was still topping sales charts. Like, games can launch with problems and still do well for the marketing team. Even
a 4. Just saying again, a 4.
Even Diablo, for example. And thankfully, now
Diablo didn't get a 4, Destin.
Y'all know you're off your rocker when Gaz.
Oh, we're off our rocker. Here we go.
Agrees with me. It's precisely because of this tax perception built on Xbox's sustained failures in a critical console generation and beyond that Xbox has no choice but to deliver above and beyond its competition. To sway the public and media, predisposition requires several key victories, not in an adversarial sense. We can cry about it, not suggesting Joey is here, or just keep pressuring the company to deliver more, especially considering the resources available to it. I believe that pressure is definitely felt within Xbox now after ABK, but it's also clear that Xbox does need a steer and reminder from the community. I believe Xbox is in a really good place. You're going to see some proper attempts and efforts at gaining traction and delivering quality content.
Okay, so I want to go to this first paragraph. Again, Gaz pretty much said the same thing that we're saying here. The real argument. Xbox has to deliver a beyond the competition in order to get the same treatment from the games media. That is the Xbox tax.
I am a lot less concerned about how Xbox's roadmap is. I'm a lot less concerned now about Xbox's roadmap than Sony's. I should probably make a video about that, but Sony's having some major problems right now in terms of just like how many people have left, how many senior people have left.
Yeah, and the games media largely has not talked anywhere near as much about that as they had with Xbox's struggles in 2022, or even Starfield.
The key franchises that are working on big like Naughty Dog lost their senior lead, Returnal lost their senior lead, tons of layoffs at Bungie. Anyway, continuing on, that is struggling to reconcile its games as a service pivot in a changing market, as well as a cash-rich behemoth like Microsoft that can introduce disruptive elements like Game Pass and a monstrous acquisition like ABK. Strictly in this sense, the industry is in a healthy place because of such determined players in the space. Hi, my name is Gaz, and this is my TED Talk. Gaz is right. We should be pressuring the $1 trillion company to do better.
We already are. What the fuck are you talking about? Yes, Gaz is right. We should all be doing that, but we should also be doing it to PlayStation. Hence Gaz's post mentioning PlayStation, yet where are all the fucking articles talking about that? Gaz is right that Xbox has to deliver. We've always thought that. Did they deliver this year? Abso-fucking-lutely they did. We got a game like Starfield, and if Starfield is not going to move the needle, then maybe nothing will. And even Starfield, that is the basis of my conversation here, because it was overly scrutinized, used as a tool, which Destin, even at the beginning of this video, said the consensus, is a very contentious title because the games media said so. Point proven, bro. You literally had one of the most ambitious games that has ever been made. You had Bethesda release a super Bethesda game, going above what they've done in the past with Skyrim and Fallout, doing something way beyond what they've ever done, advancing their kinds of games in numerous different ways, yet it was posed as stale from games media. It was posed as not moving forward enough. You know why? Because it wasn't cinematic or enough, or like a God of War type game enough for a lot of these game reviewers. People like Destin himself had compared Starfield numerous times before release to No Man's Sky. He acts surprised when people were saying you can't do that because the game's nothing like No Man's Sky. They're like, it's not. You're basically spreading misinformation about what kind of game it is. And then surprise, fucking surprise, the game comes out, and what's everybody talking about? Not enough space exploration. You can't fly to the planets like you can in No Man's Sky. You're the kind of people that haven't even created that concept in the first place. It wasn't Bethesda. Those kinds of conversations and words have impact. It was why people were saying, don't compare it to No Man's Sky. It wasn't that kind of game. It was a Bethesda RPG. Comparing it to a game like No Man's Sky, which we had always done, which people like them have, Destin have always done before, was taking away everything else about a game like Starfield that makes a game like Starfield what it is. The RPG aspects. Then it's painted as, well, this game isn't a game of the generation, therefore it's a failure. Y'all are the ones deciding that. For me, the game's a masterpiece. You're painting towards the games media's own perception and the review scores as a way to diminish the masterpiece type game that they have delivered to many of us. Even those that are trying to play good with this games media and trying to be more like, well, I'm going to be a little bit overcritical, are still playing the game an insane amount of time. I'm number 47 on my friends list in game time played on Starfield, because I've taken like a month and a half away because I've been playing a lot of other games and stuff since Forza dropped. I have over 6 days played time in Starfield. Some of the same people I see make conversations about Xbox needs to go above and beyond and do even more or whatever, do this. I have like 13 fucking days in that game already. They delivered that game this year. That's why it got that extra year. But it's not getting credit because they themselves has deemed it not worthy. This is where I don't understand. What do they got to do? You say they got to deliver this big home runs. Like, yeah, well, they did. So what else do they need to do? I mean, when's the next game they're going to have as big as Starfield? A game like Starfield only comes out like once every 6 or 7 years, maybe. Like, I don't know. Like, it's a crazy game. People are going to be playing that game for a very long time. And the rest of this entire generation and beyond. But it was used as a tool from a lot of people to paint a picture of mediocrity about Xbox. Why? When we know that the review scores were tainted by reviewers that shit on the game unnecessarily for ridiculous reasons. Jim Sterling's review came out and it gave the game a 4. When his review came out, it dropped the meta score up an entire point because of his own personal agenda against Bethesda, thinking that Bethesda hates trans people. Much like that PC Gamer article we said that he pointed to that says that, hey, they don't like capitalism. Metro's review scores come out, and they're overly ridiculous, and it's admittedly so by numerous games media people saying that those kind of things are ridiculous. Meanwhile, they also affect the score, because when that one came out, it also dropped the score an entire point. Now, you paint that into a grander scope of things, just those 2 reviews, each one dropped the score an entire point. Overall, games media, somewhere more in the middle. The game is really an incredible type of game, but because of the perception that the media has painted, it's not thought of as such by many out there. And I'll get into more of that in a little bit, but
what? Why wouldn't you? They have $1 trillion, y'all. They don't need you to jump up and defend them every time things get a little spicy, like when a Call of Duty releases and it's sort of whatever. A lot of people do not like the new Call of Duty. Influencers who are paid to play it say, yeah, that campaign was kind of mid. Maybe people disagree about the multiplayer. I don't play Call of Duty. I don't care about this Call of Duty release. But the fact that it's bad isn't insane to me, especially when Schreier, like a year ago.
Again, it's bad. The perception that the scores got has just made this game labeled as bad. Pretty much just calling it what the games media has perceived it to be as fact. It's perception. It's 2 different things, bro. Like, this is the argument that we're trying to make. You were literally doing what we are talking about. You have let that score change your perception in which a game you have not even fucking played. You admitted you don't care about it, but now you were saying it's bad? Why? Because some people don't like it? Because games media has said so? Because the reviews have painted it? But I thought you should just not read reviews when they don't matter. Just pick and choose who you read them from. But now you're just conceitedly saying it's a bad game? Is it bad? How do you fucking know?
Revealed that they were talking about canceling it. Like, if they're internally having discussions about canceling it, maybe something's wrong. Now, I don't know if audio's turned on here, but there is a little clip I'm going to try and play here.
Dan Lazar with a $5 super chat says Sterling literally said he gave Starfield a bad score because he hates Xbox. His score counts, but there is no Xbox tech. Y'all's crazy, Destin. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, they can point to these things like, oh, that's just one thing. Oh, that's just one thing. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Oh, that's one thing. That's just one thing. Oh, that's just one example. Or that's just one thing. You know, yeah, that has some merit. Oh, yeah, I guess that has some merit. Oh, I guess that one has some merit. Oh, I guess that one does. But y'all are insane. What?
I'm not getting desktop audio. Let me set it up really quick. Let's see. What am I outputting to? No audio. Let me try and get this set up. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah, baby. Yeah, I'm going to get that right now. Appreciate you for pointing that out, dude. I didn't want to miss. Yeah, baby Farva with a very generous $10 super chat. Also, it said, final point. He is totally using the IGN playbook, get the Xbox community riled up for engagement, then do another monetized stream asking us to send in proof of the Xbox tax. Nah, unsubbed. Fair point, man. That's fair point. Maybe that's what this is all about. I don't know. I personally, like I said, I've liked this in the past, but I'm blowing this up, his video up right now, because I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. The points, he's all over the place, making horrible points that is contradicting himself time and time again. And in fact, actually adding more validity and proof to the whole grander conversation at hand, not the little picture that he's trying to paint it in about this grand conspiracy cabal type scenario. We're talking about a larger issue at hand, which has already shown lots of proof of, and it even admitted that some of that stuff is weird.
It's just, my son's going crazy. I don't know what's going on, but basically, for some reason, I can't output audio. Oh, is it just because it's muted and I'm dumb? Yeah. All right, let's listen to this clip.
I think you're not getting the credit you deserve this generation.
We never will.
Yeah.
We never will.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen this. It's like we know that there's a different yardstick for the different developers. It's like we know that there's a different yardstick for the different developers.
Right.
You know, the Nintendo guys are great. I've got my Switch right here in case I want to play Fortnite.
Yep.
So, I mean, those guys are great. I talked to Reggie the other day. The guys over at PlayStation, they're executing. They've had tremendous success this time around. But, you know, it's funny. With us, I think it's maybe because, I don't know. So I think people like, oh, I hate Windows because I have to use it at work, or I'm doing email, or I don't want to do this PowerPoint for work. So I don't know if some of that anxiety and whatnot drifts over to Xbox. But, you know, we just want to do the best we can for gamers.
Okay, so that's from Kinda Funny, and that's from 2018. Joey says, and I just want to discuss for a second. Joey says, I know this whole Xbox tax is people not believing Xbox has a different set of rules applied to them. Well, I finally found the interview with Major Nelson back in 2018 admitting that they do and know Xbox has a different measuring stick today. It has a verb, tax. If the fact that Xbox doesn't have a ton of AAA games at this time period isn't a tax, it's a reality.
What? What did you say? What? What are you talking about? How many AAA games did PlayStation release this year, Destin? How many did Xbox have? What? Is that a reality? Is that a fucking reality? That's not the reality I live in. What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? Starfield, Hi-Fi Rush. You can call Hi-Fi Rush AA, but it's nominated for several different Game of the Year awards. Whatever. It was widely praised. That game was fantastic. Would it have been as widely praised if it had not shadow dropped? I don't. Maybe the games media had potentially had a chance to ruin that one for us too, so I'm glad they did. But also, you're looking at a game that, if it had been on PlayStation or Nintendo, probably would have been nominated for Game of the Year in Hi-Fi Rush. What's more AAA, Hi-Fi Rush or Mario Wonder? Right? Starfield, Forza Motorsport. Redfall didn't live up to expectations, but it was also another AAA release. What about Age of Empires 4 and 2? Are those too niche to be considered in that category? What is a AAA game? Please define it for me, sir. Is it an action adventure third person walking simulator cinematic game? Is it that? As from my experience in the past, AAA was just kind of about overall quality and budget kind of put into it to make a big grand experience for people to play. Xbox has had way more of that this year than PlayStation, and even maybe if you look back at 2022 as well, if you combine 2023 with 2022, you could look at it and be like, actually Xbox had more this year than PlayStation had both years combined. And 2024 is on the horizon too. Again, no credit for everything in development. What the fuck? Reality?
And we should be pressuring them to have more high-profile AAA releases.
Aren't they already making all these fucking games, dude? Like, what are you talking about? Have you not stayed in touch with the community and with the news? They literally also just dropped Call of Duty, which is now first party. It belongs to them. But it's not quality, because games media said so. It's a bad game. Because IGN gave it a 4. It can be a below par Call of Duty. I would argue that even a below par Call of Duty is way better than a lot of AAA games. Way better than a lot of AAA games.
I think they had like Gears 5 around 2018 off the top of my head. And then the Series X launched in what? 2020? So they had about a year where it was a very light release cadence. And the reason I bring up the Phil Spencer email is because even Phil Spencer calls the 2022 release.
What the why? Yes, we're not having this conversation. Bottom line, Larry Herb, Major Nelson pointed to a different yardstick. That's also pretty much the same thing that Gaz was saying. Meanwhile, Destin's trying to call us insane while he's pointing to these things and arguing against them. I don't understand. What are you doing, bro?
Schedule a disaster because in 2021 it felt like they were hitting their stride. Brap points out, yeah, there's an Xbox tack. Forza
Oh geez, you're gonna bring up this guy.
Horizon 5 got a 10. It was celebrated industry-wide. I think it won Racing Game of the Year that year.
Yeah, fair enough point on that. But you can also point to any instance in several different scenarios and try and discredit a larger conversation. This is a much grander thing than a couple of different reviews. This is talking about the issues that we've been discussing a lot this year. Forza Horizon 5 is probably the best arcade racer maybe ever released to a lot of people. Yeah, it's fair enough. You gave whoever reviewed that game was not an idiot. But y'all gave Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 a 4 for the campaign. You want, maybe I should circle that and put it on the screen as the one example. Like, no, it's not how this works.
So, like, and by the way, this dude hates me, by the way, but he's right. Forza got a 10. We gave, like, it's insane to me to talk about that. It would be like saying that this is the PlayStation tax, I guess. Windows Central wrote it. It must be true. Destiny 2's player count falls to new all-time low, and I'm not surprised. That's from Brendan Lowry. Oh, he writes for Windows.
Get the Nintendo Switch Mario.
Well,
he's pointing to somebody actually doing their fucking job as an excuse for IGN and different things. He's pointing to somebody actually reporting on the negative Destiny and Bungie stuff that people should be doing. How much coverage has IGN placed on that? Again, you're just showing how ridiculous you think somebody else would make that post. That's actually legitimate conversation to be had. That's the kind of stuff that we're saying. Why isn't more games media having that same kind of conversation? And it takes an Xbox site to do it. You're then pointing it as an excuse that y'all's biases and preferences aren't real? I don't understand. Dan Lazaro with the 5 saying he's literally giving his reasons why there's an Xbox tag. He's a gullible, naive clown. I'm not going to call him a clown. I'm just going to call him delusional and misguided right now.
He writes for Windows Central. I guess that's the PlayStation tax. It's insane, you guys.
Yeah.
Asking.
Fair point, too. Tavish Hill in the chat says, is Greg Miller a conspiracy theorist? He was the one that brought up that Xbox wasn't getting due credit in the Larry Herb interview. You're gonna call him insane, Destin? You're gonna call Greg Miller insane? Because Larry Herb was just confirming what Greg pretty much had already just said. That's a very valid point, Tavish.
Xbox to come up with a regular release cadence, which they have been working on. And Redfall, by the way, this past year was supposed to be part of that release cadence, failed. And Phil Spencer admits it failed. And they're reevaluating their internal policies to correct that issue.
Do you see a lot of Xbox fans bringing up Redfall? No. that we all had acknowledged. We said it was subpar. But I will use Redfall as an example here of Xbox bias and Xbox tax. Recently, Redfall had another update, which since Redfall's been patched with the 60 frames, I actually think it's a fun game, right? Redfall had another update recently, right? And it had a lot of improvements and a lot of changes. Meanwhile, the headline from IGN, and I had posted this on Twitter, made it into a negative because it didn't take away always online functionality. It didn't get rid of the always online functionality of the game. And instead of focusing on the improvements that Redfall had made and just making it about that, the article that IGN posted read mostly like a hit piece on Redfall for updating their game, even pointing to an excerpt from the review saying how bad it was. Also mentioning numerous times, and including on the headline, about people wanting always online, or getting rid of people wanting him to get rid of the always online will be disappointed. This was an update to improve the game. Meanwhile, it was taken into a negative direction by IGN.
We should be hard on Xbox when they make mistakes. Look, Starfield wasn't for everybody. That doesn't make it a bad game. That doesn't mean there's an Xbox tax. It just means it was a contentious release, largely due to some of the mission structure based on what I've read.
Again, based on what I've read.
A feeling of grindiness and repetitiveness, and sort of like the illusion is broken because the way that they built the interplanetary systems didn't work for everybody. But for some people, it was great. Now, Chris Dring also talked about how this is real. Like, console sales were up 33% across track.
So who did, again, to bring up Starfield, who decided that system was a flaw? Was it Games Media? Pretty much seemed to be like what he's saying, right? Again, perception isn't always reality, but if there's enough perception out there, it can become reality to many people that can't see beyond it, right? Like, it has now been told that Call of Duty is bad because Games Media said so. The mission structure is bad because Games Media says so.
European markets year on year. This was entirely due to PlayStation 5, with sales up 116% over June last year. Switch sales were down 2.3 year on year, while Xbox Series X and X sales were down 0.8, so basically flat. Fast forward a few months later, Xbox sees a big sales slump. Let me find it.
What is the point of this?
Number Switch is number 2, despite a 20% drop in sales compared with last October, while Xbox Series X and S sales continue to struggle in Europe, down 52% year on year. These are struggles that Xbox has to figure out.
Okay, so we're going to talk about something, a cause and effect here, right? Does the media and perception that is permeated from media and games media about creating this kind of reality that exists on social media and spreads, does that have an effect on sales? I personally believe it does. There's reasons why games will put quality stamps on their products. There are examples of tons of games that have won Game of the Year and stuff, putting that on their boxes to sell more because it's a stamp of quality, right? Like, why would those games do that if it didn't affect the sales of the game? Do you see those games putting bad review scores on games? No, but that stuff gets word of mouth. That stuff spreads around, and hence is seen as lesser than or lower than, which can in turn affect sales. It can affect having that cool card. And a lot of times that is decided and pushed through the narratives are pushed by the games media and used by people in the communities as either console war tools, or just it becomes a perception. Just like Destin had said, the mission structure is bad in Starfield. Just like the Destin has said, Call of Duty is bad. He's accepted that as the reality. He's accepted that. Because he's using that as the argument. So if we're to perceive all the kind of things that he's talking, again, like you said, Xbox doesn't have any big AAA games as a reality. He's causing part of the problem with this video. He is literally contributing to the possibility of somebody not buying an Xbox. The same as IGN, all the games media and all that kind of thing. It has an effect. It matters. Public perception is a lot of times based at the core from rumblings, word of mouth, and all these things that starts a lot of times from people that cover these things, right? Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason. I mean, there's lots of reasons why Xbox isn't selling as much as a PlayStation or Nintendo, and it goes back for a long time. But it's weird to use that in an argument about Xbox tax and stuff as like Xbox is down. Like, why are you using that? Are you saying Xbox sucks because they're not selling as much, therefore the games are worse? Like, to make it make sense. Again, I don't understand.
I will say that Microsoft's strategy is not about the console. When I see people touting Xbox's console difficulties as some sort of weird victory for whatever reason, it's not true, because their strategy isn't about the console. Even Sony, who is selling their console like crazy, is firing tons of people because that's not the future. However, Chris String also pointed out Xbox hasn't had the best year so far in terms of raw hardware sales across Europe, but the most effective way for it to reach European players is via mobile and PC. And in that regard, it's making real headway. Xbox has a different playbook at play, and Chris String, who I imagine got a lot of flack for talking about how console sales were down year over year, because everybody likes to pile on Chris whenever he's critical about Xbox, also
Chris, I didn't really see a lot of people being critical, just pointing out numbers.
Realizes that, hey, that's not really their strategy now, is it? And I think we all know that, right?
Yes, we do. So why are you fucking even bringing it up in your argument against Xbox tax?
I just want people to think about this whole Xbox tax thing, and it's not real.
See, he doesn't even know how to make the connection here. He's like, why did I just do that? Because it really serves no purpose in this conversation. So let's just go back to the beginning point that I want people to think about it. Like, what? Like, but I just want people to think about the Xbox tax.
There are things that happen online. Nobody's like going out of their way to dunk on Xbox. That's insane. You're
going out of your way to make this video, bro. It's like, nobody's going out of their way to dunk on Xbox, but I'm going out of my way to call the community insane.
grand conspiracy against Xbox. Xbox needs to win over players. PlayStation has spent, since the PlayStation 4 through the PlayStation 5, all of that time with better marketing. They did some cutthroat stuff behind the scenes to get more players, like having those Call of Duty exclusives. And you know what Microsoft did in response? They bought Bethesda and they bought Activision. We are at...
Which was largely from Games Media criticized and talked about numerous times. Even Jason Schreier, right when that, if I was PlayStation right now, I'd be calling the FTC. Dan Stapleton from IGN making posts about it.
At the time when Xbox has an opportunity to sway the consumer base back to their platform. And when internal emails are alluding to the fact that Xbox will no longer exist if they don't make that pendulum swing back in their direction, I don't think that's a media bias or anything like that making Microsoft make that decision. Microsoft recognizes that they have work to do and they're putting in the work. That is great. And I think being critical about their missteps, like that Call of Duty, it ain't it. And if you're using that Call of Duty entry to use as some sort of defense, or even Starfield, like, you have to be able to look at these games and say, okay, I love Starfield. What are some reasons some people might not like it as much as I do? And just recognize that you have a difference of opinion.
That's not what people are doing here, Destin. They're pointing to the clear, obvious things. The clear, obvious points. And they have sent you tons of information and evidence here. Not just, oh, it's just some people have a difference of opinion. It's clear, blatant, obvious shit that has been going on for years. Like Major Nelson even said himself that he knows there's a different yardstick. Greg Miller even said he doesn't think Xbox was getting the credit it had deserved that year. Right? But then you go to this year where you yourself even says that Xbox didn't have any big AAA games or as many as they should or whatever. And what fucking reality was that 2023? That is this preferential bias undertones that we're speaking about. It is not the reality in the world that we actually live in the Xbox community playing these games. You have a different perception of reality than the rest of the gaming community does in the Xbox community, for sure. But people that aren't interested in Xbox or don't really know about it or whatever will take conversations like this or take other things that have been said from Games Media as fact. And that is where it has an effect.
It doesn't mean there's a grand conspiracy against the Xbox platform.
You don't.
I love y'all.
Why would you paint that into this narrow picture again? This whole idea to easily dismiss things is just absolutely ridiculous. Nobody thinks there's this people meeting to absolutely just crush Xbox and keep them from ascending into gaming glory or whatever the fuck. But they see this inherent back of the mind preference and preferential treatment towards other brands. Just the way it goes.
Well, I gotta call it like I see it though with this whole Xbox tax thing. And I think Xbox fans should be asking Xbox to continue to elevate their platform, come up with new strategies to win new customers. And honestly, I think next year and the year after and the year after that, we're going to see some pretty substantial changes just based on.
Yeah, yeah, duh. But also, they're already doing really good this year. Are they getting the credit they deserve for that? Not necessarily. But it is what it is. Will it continue to improve? Yes. But they shouldn't have to battle against this biased preferential treatment on the way there. Right? It's an uphill battle. It's different. They have to go and do more than the other brands do, which they already are. But it's not realized, and it's not talked about from those same people. In 2021, it had started, right? It had started. You could see things starting to sway. you can see things like, okay, Games Media is coming a little bit, they're understanding here a little bit more. All of a sudden, Xbox has a bad year and just shit's all out the fucking window. It's all down the drain. Back to the early, why do you even need an Xbox? All these kind of conversations. Xbox has no games again. All this kind of stuff. And then Redfall launched, so it's like, Xbox just can't release a fucking good game. Well, this is the kind of, all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, all these other things that had already happened, Hi-Fi Rush, Age 2, Age 4, fucking Forza Motorsport, Starfield, all the other games keep coming out and are really great games. But they're like, we're going to like overly harshly criticize this and knock it way more than we would other games that have other problems or all these kind of things that we just kind of overlook. Right? It's just the way it is, man. It's just the way that we've seen it for a long time. And the evidence is all there. Yeah, it's interesting. No, and again, I don't want Destin to feel like I'm just 100% attacking him, but I guess I'm attacking his point. I think it has no validity. I think it's just completely off the mark. I think he's arguing against himself. I think he's completely painting the picture that we're trying to argue that exists. Meanwhile, he's trying to isolate it into this one small, narrow-minded thing that obviously doesn't exist, so it's easy to dismiss. So there was another part of this I wanted to play. And it was at the beginning of his, I'm going to mute this for a second while this ad plays. Beginning of his live stream. Where he kind of makes a couple points that I feel like were misguided as well. All right, here we go. Real quick, Bold Alpha Wolfpack with the 5 says, Elevate. Xbox already is the better platform. PS has skated along on timed exclusivity since PS3. Why aren't people talking about that much? You know, like, I don't understand why at PlayStation this year. I made a post earlier this year. I was like, PlayStation has a first-party games problem this year. You know how many people came out in the defense of PlayStation in that post and was just simply stating a fact. They had one big first-party game released this year. 2022, Xbox had the same issue. It was widely accepted from the Xbox community that they needed to do better, right? So the holding Xbox accountable thing is just not valid whatsoever, right? But hopefully should hold PlayStation accountable as well, right? Dan Lazaro hit us with a 5 super chat as well. Said it's simple. Reviewers don't like getting reviewed. Throwing around crazy and insane 100 times for what they see is the definition of is the definition of gaslighting. 100%. So let's get into this other part here. Let's see. I think it's starting.
Because it feels like it's put together with duct tape and Elmer's glue. Okay, look. I wrote something that I want to read, and I'm just going to do that first, I think. I think that's how I'm going to start. I wrote it. I'm going to read what I wrote. I'm going to do Discord call-ins a little bit later. And I should probably read it before my hair starts getting all frizzy, right? So I made my video talking about the Xbox tax, why I don't think it's real, why I think the examples that are being used, especially the Call of Duty one, is one of the worst examples. I put a call out on Twitter asking for more evidence. People send in a ton of stuff that they see as evidence that there is in Xbox evidence. 9 Lives is calling out that in 2014, I made an image talking about 900p versus 1080p because Thief 3 on the original Xbox One ran at 900p and it ran at 1080p native on the PS4. Stuff like that really gets me riled up because those criticisms of the original Xbox One, not just from me, I'm not saying I did it, obviously, but that criticism from the industry got us the Xbox One X. It got us the Xbox Series X. We have like a great lineup in terms of console hardware.
Yeah, and it almost put Xbox out of business too, bro. Like, yeah, luckily for us, we got Phil Spencer that actually convinced them to double down, right? That got them to double down and reinvest and invest larger into Xbox. It wasn't because of your 900p versus 1080p video, Destin. I know you think you're really important here with what you did in 2014 and the impact that you had on the Xbox brand, trying to hold them accountable, but that wasn't why. It was Phil Spencer, okay?
That only improved because of those criticisms. So the idea that criticism is the same as an Xbox tax, I do not agree with. So I get riled up when people say,
I agree with that. We criticize Xbox all the time, but you seemingly don't think that Xbox fans do, and you're wrong.
That you had a role in the Xbox tax. If by a role, you mean 9 years ago, I had a thumbnail made for a Daily Fix story about how the resolution was 900p for Thief 3 versus 1080p on PS4. Yeah, like that thumbnail. What is Xbox tax? I am glad people are asking that question. So
just to make a point about that, there's been numerous games that are different resolutions on PlayStation and Xbox this generation, right? And you don't see thumbnails from Destin or IGN or whatever like going, oh my God, look at this. It's that was a big conversation point. I agree. I think that Xbox should have had better power at the gate last year. And you don't want to be second, but it didn't make a huge impact in those fucking games either, right? But thumbnails like that dramatized it at the time.
I wrote a little something first because what I'm not doing is I am not denying that there are negative posts about Xbox Online. That is obviously true. I see them also. I also see a lot of bad takes. I see a lot of stupid tweets, but I don't think there's some inherently negative Xbox bias spread through the industry, because you know what I also see, because I look for it, I see tons of positivity about Xbox. I see it from the community constantly. I see it from the media who say stuff like, I don't recommend buying a PlayStation 5 right now around the launch of the Xbox because I'm just loving my Xbox Series X so much, and positive sentiment about the Xbox Series X around launch. And just
same thing we pointed to, where you can always find positivity and negativity about every brand. This absolutely has no value in the larger conversation. It's about the quality and some of the things that are done versus Xbox that don't seemingly aren't seem to be done as much to the other brands.
Just what Xbox is doing, and then that just gets brushed under the rug. People just forget all the positivity because they bring up tweets from 2014 or the God of War launch tweet that a lot of people bring up, and it's just really unfortunate to see that is the takeaway. That's the takeaway. And you're like, traditional journalism is terrible. And I'm like, you're correlating dumb tweets with bad journalism. And another problem is,
no, people have been sharing you dumb tweets from journalism, Destin. Dumb headlines, dumb articles.
As all the bad stuff gets put on, like if one outlet writes a bad take, every bad take from everybody in the industry gets put on that one place. Like,
no,
I've seen the Starfield player retention post. That's a bad post. That is objectively ridiculous.
Okay? It exists. There. The one that he's talking about, I think it was, I can't remember if it was PC Gamer or whatever, that was like, Starfield's losing players. Is it in trouble or something like that? It's a fucking that's never happened before in any single player game ever with player count. Like, that's like not a metric that they even got a community note put on it, I think, on Twitter, regarding like the success of the game.
Right. And that is, and like when mistakes are made, yes, they should be called out.
Right, but it was Games Media that did that, Destin. It wasn't just some random community person. It was Games Media. That's the argument.
But I do not think it implies that there is a rampant issue in the industry.
Oh, now we're saying there's an issue, but it's not rampant. He recognizes now that there's an issue, but now it's not a rampant issue. Okay, right? Oh, it's just those ones. It's just those ones. Like, so you acknowledge it, but then it doesn't exist, or people that believe in it are insane.
All right, so I'm going to record this first part. I'm glad I did it live because I'm getting all riled up just reading the comments, and it's a little bit more of a dialogue. But
Bob MCPE says, Mav, why you're fat? Because I like food.
I don't have a ton of time, by the way, because the kids are going to do nap time and everything. So, yeah. Michael, thank you for the $10, I don't know what they're called, tip or whatever, but I really appreciate it. Especially, like, I'm losing subscribers because of my post about the Xbox tax, where I talk about why I think the Call of Duty correlation is bad. And like Mafro, why are you even, if you think that me working at IGN means I can't sit here and have a personal opinion, why are you watching my channel? Like, I don't get it, man. What you think I spent 3...
Okay, what do you say again?
If you think record this first part.
All right, I gotta hear this part again.
I'm glad I did it live because I'm getting all riled up just reading the comments, and it's a little bit more of a dialogue. But I don't have a ton of time, by the way, because the kids are going to do nap time and everything. So, yeah. Michael, thank you for the $10, I don't know what they're called, tip or whatever, but I really appreciate it.
Super chat, bro. How long you been doing YouTube, man? Jeez.
Especially, like, I'm losing subscribers because of my post about the Xbox tax, where I talk about why I think the Call of Duty correlation is bad. And like Mafro, why are you even, if you think that me working at IGN means I can't sit here and have a personal opinion, why are you watching my channel?
The Mafro guy in his chat said ignorance is bliss with IGN capitalized. Oh, that triggered him, man. That triggered him, right? You're going to learn, Destin, that you're going to have people come that disagree with you. Here, we just block a lot of those guys. But it's fun when the PlayStation, like, fanboys come around and just start shit-talking Xbox. They just get blocked, right? But you're talking, the problem you've created for yourself, Destin, is you're actually talking to the Xbox community who have tuned into you for Xbox news and things like that because you have been talking about Xbox and stuff. That's why they've been watching you. That's why you've gained that audience. So when you come out and you call them insane, they might have an issue with that.
Like, I don't get it, man. What you think I spent 3 years of my life developing a channel dedicated to talking about the awesome stuff that Xbox is doing and how I believe in what Xbox is doing and I see their roadmap towards success. You think I did that for
really? Because last video you said you didn't think they had enough quality games. Do you see it, Destin?
3 years to make one video where I disagree with the community that lost me subscribers, that means I will lose money for making.
Oh my God. Ooh.
Like, what are you talking about?
He just said,
yes,
ignorance
my
is
plan
bliss.
to lose subscribers, lose money, be bombarded with negativity online is a complete roaring success. I can be.
Yeah, maybe Destin should be looking in the mirror right now. It's like he's sounding like he's like having affirmations. You're smart enough. You're good enough. And gosh darn it, people like you, not like me, or like whatever. How does that go? Is it you or me? I'm smart enough. I'm good enough. And gosh darn it, people like me.
Be dead wrong. That's fine. You can think I'm wrong. Mafro. That's fine. But the idea that I can't have a
yeah, Stuart Smiley. Ah, damn ads. Hold on. I need to get YouTube Premium, babe. Sorry, I can't do shit like this and have ads. I gotta get YouTube Premium. Like it. I'm just gonna have to do it. It's expensive, but you know, it is what it is. I gotta get it.
also working on IGN. Come on. Your shilling for IGN erases all of that. It's not just IGN.
To the person's point, this is like the IRS coming out and saying that tax doesn't exist. Right? Hi, I'm an accountant with the IRS. I'm going to make a video telling you why there are no taxes.
IGN posts that I'm talking about. None of the posts that I even referenced in the original video have anything to do with IGN as far as I can tell. They were all just Call of Duty reviews being bad. Call of Duty on Metacritic right now is scored higher on the Xbox brand than it is on the PlayStation brand.
Out of how many reviews? That's a good question. I wonder how many reviews are on PlayStation versus Xbox.
The reviews for Xbox games, the average is higher for Xbox games than it is for PlayStation exclusive games.
Oh, but I thought PlayStation had more high quality games than what you just said in your last video. So you're acknowledging that because you do think the review scores matter all of a sudden? Is that what it is? I'm confused.
At least on IGN. So like it's just crazy to me. Are you saying those journalists don't have bias? Everybody on planet Earth has biases, right? There is one person in particular who made a tweet that was deleted a few hours after it was posted. And I have to be like, I don't want to call anybody specifically out because I don't want to speak for them. But here's what I do see about that person who has been lambasted for 6 months for a deleted tweet, right? And that pisses me off because that person loved Xbox. That person was excited about the Series X. They talk about how much fun they're having playing Xbox games and all that stuff. And that's gone. You know what a bad way to convince somebody how great the Xbox brand is and how great the Xbox community is? It's not by doing that. It certainly is not.
What the fuck are you talking about? Just say what it was.
Yeah, loved because you know what happened, Aaron? That person has been harassed relentlessly for 6 months over a deleted tweet. So you know what they do? They shut up. They stop talking about Xbox altogether. That's what happens.
What was the tweet? What was the tweet?
Everybody has bias. Yes, everybody on planet Earth has bias.
Yeah.
I probably have an unconscious bias against unfair practices at mega corporations that negatively impact consumers. Dan Stapleson's tweet about playing on Xbox being the worst place to play on. Okay. Oh, damn.
Oh, Destin. Yeah, explain this one.
I don't want to bring up specific people. That is a tweet about language. and it's from February.
So?
And
you
that
brought
tweet,
up shit in your last thing from 2018. So now February is off limits? You brought up stuff in your last thing from 2014 saying how Xbox was down and that's why things are the way they are. But now we can't talk about February. Oh, that was forever ago. Oh, and the last one, 6 months ago. Oh, that's off limits. Oh, we can talk about 2014. We can talk about 2018. We can talk about 2022. Oh, we can't talk about February. Oh, that was forever ago.
Good, William. Why are you here? Thank you for the money for watching. If you hate me for disagreeing one time on one thing so much that you're unsubscribing, then you never were a fan and you never had my back anyway.
Man, he's struggling right now, bro. I almost feel bad for him at this point.
Because if we can't sit here and have a conversation about something we disagree on and you just need to punish me, then...
Just punish you from unsubscribing? Just be grateful for the people that are there, dude. Like, what the fuck? Like, what is he talking about? Like, if they feel like they want to, if anybody here wants to unsubscribe and you let me know, I'm like, cool, see you. I appreciate the time you spent here. I'm sorry if you didn't like what I had to say or whatever. It just is what it is. You can unsub, but you're actually going to be like, oh, like, how dare you? You were never a fan. You were never a fan of me if you come here and all of a sudden we disagree and you unsubscribe. Oh.
Whatever, dude.
Whatever.
I have a bias against people who don't
You
hit.
think like these games media people are just so fucking sensitive, and man, I gotta say, dude, like, holy shit. Like, so you see the sensitivity coming out from like people like Max Scoville when Jasper pointed out the IGN thing, and then he called him a conspiracy theorist, where like 3-Bit made a good point on a post to a different person from IGN. Then they said he was rage tweeting. This guy says he's gonna unsub. Why were you ever here?
Hit the subscribe button. Yeah. You can't call out your bosses and coworkers at IGN.
Vested interest? Yeah.
What do you want me to say?
Duh. No shit. Remember last time when he said that there was a vested interest from the Call of Duty community website person? And he's like, they're defending IGN and Games Media. Like, he doesn't have a vested interest. And this person clearly says, you can't go out there and say anything negative about him. He's like, yeah, I can't. So, like, of course, like I was saying, you were the wrong person to be having this argument in the first place.
I don't think. I think there were bad. How can I say it? I think there were bad posts, many of which were deleted, many of which that have been sent to me that I've discussed and have been removed. Say you're sorry. What am I sorry for? I don't agree that there's an Xbox tax.
This is
I have to
hilarious.
apologize because I don't think there's an Xbox tax. How can I apologize for that?
Oh man, this is fucking great. I didn't know it got this bad.
Like I don't know how to appease you besides agreeing with something that I don't agree with. And I can't do that. I'm going to read what I wrote.
Yeah, let's get to that.
I'm going to read what I wrote.
Because you're responding to your community. If
there's no sound on the YouTube stream, something's wrong because I think everybody else can hear me.
Oh, shit.
Or,
wow.
Or I've just been.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't understand that people are going to not necessarily always think the same or like that are going to disagree. And he's like surprised. Oh, I make this like video calling y'all all insane. And now you're coming out and you are saying you didn't like it. Oh, how dare you?
crazy talking to myself the whole time. All right. So let's see if I can record and do this at the same time. All right, oh God. All right. So I'll just have to do it live and clip it. That was like weird. I'll do it live, then I'll clip it. All right. So I wrote something. I'm going to be reading off a script for a little bit. So I apologize if I'm not looking directly at the camera. I thought it was important to write down all my thoughts and sort of read it that way. But anyway, well, that Xbox tax video did not go over very well. I want to talk a little bit more, but I want to make one thing clear. I am not saying that there is no negativity about Xbox ever posted online. But the Xbox tax idea is that Xbox will not or does not get a fair shake just because it's Xbox. And that's what I want to talk a bit more about today.
Last time you tried to paint it as a picture, it was this grand conspiracy of everybody getting together and like trying to just smash Xbox. And that was so easily dismissible. Now he's changed that. Notice that he's come off of that pretty dramatically.
Because while I agree that there have been some bad posts, straight up bad posts about Xbox over the years, I do not think that there's like, oops, I screwed up. I do think that there's also a lot of reaching going on, and I want to talk about that a bit more. So digging into it a bit more, the idea behind the Xbox tax is that there's a negative sentiment behind Xbox more so than for other brands. The problem I have with that is if you were looking for negative sentiment around PlayStation or Nintendo, you would also find it. If you go,
but that doesn't equate for the fact that we just said that there's more. Of course you can find things about everything. You could look up random reviews about fucking anything and find people that don't like it. That has no validity here to the conversation.
Go looking for negative content, you're going to find it. And a lot of the stuff that I've been sent, it's often like a headline that's sort of weird compared to another headline. But then when you actually go read the article, it's actually super positive about Xbox.
Okay, so you're admitting that the headlines are shit and meant to be negative towards Xbox? Isn't that part of the conversation? Why, like, yeah, that matters. A lot of people don't even actually fully click and read the full articles. The idea should be based on the headline. And when people say a negative headline, obviously that's ran with a lot of times. Like, yes, the headlines are a problem. It's part of the problem. Thank you for acknowledging it, Destin.
So like I just don't see it the same way, right? So anyway, I've been very negative about PlayStation, for example, on this channel. For example, that's just one example. I screwed up again. I don't agree with you all that the Xbox tax is a thing. The fact that I can't disagree about a topic is a little problematic to me. The examples from my previous video are not good examples of an Xbox tax proof because I think Modern Warfare 3 is objectively a bad game. It's sitting.
Why? You've never played it. Objectively?
At 56 for PlayStation 5 on Metacritic, 60 for Xbox, and a 1.8 user score. It is
now, if you know anything about Call of Duty and also these annual release games like sports games, the user scores are always fucking in the trash because the people hate on them and nitpick and just give it zeros all over the place. That's just par for the course on that. You can never point to user score on one of these games as any kind of metric. The Games Media score is decided by the Games Media, which is the issue at hand and which we were discussing in the first place. Again, you can't point to the result of the conversation. The result of what we're claiming is a sense of bias or a feeling of bias, and then say because it exists, therefore there is no bias. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, point to Jim Sterling's review and say that there's no bias. Point to Metro. Point to PC Gamers, which you've already mentioned numerous times that you've seen bad takes, you've seen bad things. But if those exist, other things can't exist. Like all of a sudden, like where's that window at? Because those are just more blatant and so overly obvious, you can't argue against them. But even just the slight preferences or slight biases that might affect things, or all of a sudden are out the window. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You can't take what the perception that isn't also in line with the actual community, who he tried to discredit in his last video because they have vested interest, because they are Call of Duty community sites. They disagree with the review scores for multiplayer. They've been trying to say that, hey, it's not that bad. People have been pointing to IGN's campaign score of a 4, saying it's utterly ridiculous that even though it is necessarily not up to par with other Call of Duty campaigns, to get a score like that is just absolutely kind of ridiculous, right? Because we know what that means in the larger community. We know what that means if you've been paying attention to games media and reviews for the last 20 years. We know what a 4 is. Again, Black Ops 4 didn't even have a campaign. Battlefield 2042 didn't even have a campaign. And the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 campaign may be not as good as some of the others, or it may be on the lower end. You look at other games like Ghost or something like that. But to go and say it's a 4 and then you try and justify it because y'all decided it as such? Saying it is objectively bad because the games media has decided so. That's the argument. It's not being judged fairly. I don't necessarily agree it's the Xbox thing with Call of Duty. I think it's a hive mind mentality. And I'm going to go into one potential reason why, because he's about to say the real reason.
Objectively a bad product that was considered for cancellation at one point and built under an era at Activision where Bobby Kotick was participating in union busting and the company was going through like massive lawsuits for labor issues. Like the story of how bad it was at Activision during that time period is one that's told. And I just think it's a really bad example to use.
Why? That's a bad example to use about the quality of a game. What does any of that stuff that has going on has to do with the quality of the game that was put out? A game that the Call of Duty community is saying has the best multiplayer they've played in a long time. Again, he said earlier he could see himself biased against corporations doing bad things and all that kind of stuff. Well, we already know how the media kind of treated Hogwarts Legacy, right? Was this the year that all of a sudden the games media was like, Activision bad, right? Activision bad, Bobby Kotick bad, 4, right? Oh, they're trying to pull this one over our eyes and stuff forward without actually really judging the game based on all of its own merits. And he says he didn't even care about Call of Duty, yet he's trying to weigh on this, saying it's objectively bad because, again, games media said so.
Utilize as any fault for Xbox. I see the tips coming in, by the way, but I'm trying to record this live and not do too many edits. So thank you for the tips. I missed one. Ari, thank you. Thank you, Dark.
Oh, God. Destin, stop worrying about your hair, bro. It's fine.
Where was I?
I can tell you're nervous being live.
The dev cycle isn't on Xbox. So, that's on Kotick, and he's gone near the end of the year, something that Xbox is going to do. We have to see what the next Call of Duty and the one after have shown before we can make correlations to Xbox. It's like we have to see what the future of Call of Duty does before we can make any correlation to an effect being because of Xbox. It doesn't make sense to do it for this entry. Tando asked if I saw a video reacting i3bit response to an X. He's a game developer that believes in Xbox tax. Okay. I mean, I still don't agree with him.
But you didn't even fucking read his post or acknowledge what it said. So how do you know you don't agree with him? Just because this guy said that he believes in it? Like, how about you actually read it and then say you disagree? Anyway.
Ziff Davis owns IGN, who runs the official PlayStation magazine, Follow the Money. The official PlayStation magazine was defunct 6 years before.
This is a good time to bring this up real quick because I actually have 3Bit's tweet here. And I thought he did an amazing job on Twitter actually posting this and bringing to light some things because he has a different level of, I guess, understanding about the games industry because he actually has worked in it. He's worked with Ubisoft. He's worked with Playground Games as well. He's done other things in the game industry. He's and he has understanding kind of, and also has been involved with conversations behind the scenes with lots of game developers and all that kind of stuff within Xbox and without, and understands kind of the whole behind the scenes stuff, right? So it's a 3Bit's tweet in which Destin Legarie said that he disagrees with, but didn't, it just kind of brushed it off, right? The Xbox tax. Internally, it's known throughout several studios to prioritize PlayStation versions of a game first due to its overall popularity, which can lead to performance disparities depending on time and development and priorities. We've seen that numerous times as well. You're correct there, 3Bit. It's commonly known throughout many third-party studios that PlayStation is the priority, then porting versions of their game to an Xbox, which can leave out key graphical and optimizational features in its dev kits. I believe that priority sentiment carries throughout the industry in my experience and carries through a bias mentality. The PlayStation First mentality is also seen with review copies, with most reviewers preferring or having a preference to playing or reviewing a game on PlayStation First. An Xbox game can review well initially, but receive negative coverage for months afterwards. Halo, Starfield, Call of Duty, Sea of Thieves, or be opted out of categories of conversation. That's 100% right as well. We didn't see negative articles for months after a game release like we have with Starfield. We didn't see articles like, I forgot that Starfield exists, about like other games, right? This shitting on Xbox mentality, which then Destin also agreed that there's been bad posts about Xbox as well. It can't say it doesn't paint a picture of this whole thing that we're trying to point out to you. It exists. These things don't exist with the other brands like they do with Xbox. Multi-platform games tend to also have more reviews in general on PlayStation. Even more favorable outlets choose to sometimes opt out of Xbox coverage or copies overall. I have personally seen outlets reject Xbox copies of a game. This is why you also see games that have marketing deals with Xbox get reviewed more on PlayStation. Happens all the time. And in my honest opinion, you do not see that same energy with PlayStation products or games in terms of negative articles. No multitude of articles asking about where The Last of Us Factions is, or asking about the players dropping in a game months after launch, like Starfield, a single-player game. No asking about KOTOR status, multitude of studios that have had layoffs of 100-plus people, their pipeline, lack of showcases, or any hint of negativity toward a portable device that isn't great at being portable, getting higher review scores than devices like the Steam Deck, something made to be portable. No series of articles about upcharging for a service without any improvements, or if there is an article, is buried with a multitude of articles about why you should forget about a game like Starfield. Barely a peep throughout many industry outlets on a variety of topics of anything that's negative about PlayStation. So in my opinion, there is a bias, and I don't think it's a bad thing to point out that the media prefers PlayStation, and it reads that Xbox can be a hindrance to these people in a lot of scenarios. Well said, 3Bit. I thought that was an amazing tweet that you had made and laid it out from a different perspective as well. It had tons of engagement, and I think a lot of people had seen those points and have respected them, even though Destin here has just shrugged it off and said, I disagree, without probably even ever reading it whatsoever.
Ziff Davis purchased IGN. Per Schneider commented on this on Twitter, and it also leaves out the fact that they also own the official Xbox magazine. So they ran both. They had the official Xbox magazine, the official PlayStation magazine. Both were owned by Future, I believe. I don't remember the time. This is like before my time.
Ziff Davis, though, is like they own a lot of these sites now that are also part of this problem. That he's even said himself some of these articles were bad.
all that happened 6 years, and like they were defunct 5 or 6 years before Ziff Davis ever acquired IGN. So like those things were out of publication. So I don't know what the correlation is supposed to be there. Like it's, and that's the problem with Twitter. Like you don't get that context, right? I'm just going to continue reading. I sort of lost my track because I was commenting on stuff like that. Right. I spent the last 3 years building up this channel because I believe in what Xbox is doing. My Xbox content is mostly positive. I'm critical when I feel I need to be critical. Redfall would be a good example. And the result of all the criticism Redfall received, by the way, is that Phil Spencer and the Xbox team internally are looking at ways to ensure it doesn't happen again. So when you see criticism like that levied at an Xbox brand that failed to meet every...
But it's also the community's criticism, not just games media. Like there's not some kind of like media thing that's holding them accountable. Like it's the communities, it's the player feedback, it's the reception, it's the how the game has done based on that. But it's also they have done numerous Redfall, like he's using Redfall again. So like they've done numerous updates, and even when they've done those updates and have tried to make the game better and stuff, IGN has still tried to knock it down. I want to try and find this tweet and this post from IGN because I had quote tweeted it a few days ago. I do tweet a lot, so I'm trying to find it here. So bear with me. It was regarding IGN and their Redfall update article. And this isn't the big update. This was a smaller update, right? So because he's bringing up Redfall, I want to bring it back up. And if I can find it. Yeah, bear with me, guys. This is my timeline here. So when I find it, I'll find it. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna search. I'm gonna search for it. Hold on. You like all those memes and stupid posts? Great, right? I have to search for it. Okay. Okay, here we go. I found it. All right, so my post was, instead of focusing on the improvements, IGN decides to focus on something negative that most of us could care less about. So many games require online these days. So this was November 16th. IGN's headline: Redfall's latest update introduces a new weapon and performance improvements, but still no option to play offline. Like, that was never a promise, right? First off. So again, so you click on the article. Redfall Update 3 adds new weapon and performance improvements, but no offline mode. Redfall's next game update is here, but if you were hoping that this new patch would roll out the option to play offline, you would be disappointed. They talk about some of the updates here. Another again, here they go. Talking about the offline thing again, like, why are they focusing so much about them adding on offline, like adding offline to it, or taking away the online requirement right now? Like, they made so many different updates in this game, and then they ended off by adding quotes from their review saying Redfall is a baffling bad time across the board. Like, here, I'm just painting the picture of how these things can be like painted, right? Like, why even necessarily mention that? You could just bring up talk about the update itself and what's there, right? Why make it into a negative about what's not? They had mentioned they would, they talked about that they would do it, right? But they didn't say exactly when that was going to happen or anything like that. Like, they actually didn't, in a previous interview, which IGN had pointed to, they said they would look into it and they want to try and do it. But like, it wasn't like a thing to expect in that update. Right. Like, it's just focus on that update. Like, it's not, and you don't see, I can understand if there's like this huge sentiment and outcry for it as well. Like, there's really not, except from them themselves. I personally don't care if it's offline or not. I don't know how many of you do, but I have internet. And there's several games that release every year that require online. But anyway, that's just my take on that, but it is what it is.
Everyone's expectations, Xbox fans included, I think a positive result is what happens, right? I remember a colleague, for example, getting a ton of heat because they talked about how much they loved their Xbox and didn't recommend buying a PlayStation 5 at the time because it didn't have as many games to play. Others have talked about how much they're loving their Series X and getting bombarded by PlayStation's fans for it. But no one is going around clipping out the positive stuff. No one's going around comparing, oh, look at this positive thing or negative thing you said.
Yeah, because that's not what the argument is. Of course, there's always going to be instances of that side as well. But people are pointing to the larger issue at hand, bro.
Now it's positive. Like, you're not looking for that. If you're digging for negativity, you're going to find negativity.
Okay, so I have an issue with him saying digging for. Because you didn't have to dig for this stuff. Like, one of the examples was just people watching a Battlefield 2042 like trailer or stream. That was actually, that game also, I believe, had Xbox marketing, and IGN was doing a stream for it. And then somebody in the IGN chat for an IGN account, it just said IGN right on it. And I actually think I bookmarked that recently. So let me bring that up. Had taken it out of their way to shit on Xbox from IGN. People there weren't looking for that at the time. How do I get to my own bookmarks? I don't even know how to get to bookmarks. I'm horrible at Twitter. Let's see here. Oh, there it is. Bookmarks. Okay, here we go. This is the post. I'm trying to zoom in on this. Okay, so this was during a Battlefield stream, I believe it was. And this IGN account, it came out later that they had accidentally been logged into the IGN account instead of their own personal account. Okay. This was from a person that works at IGN. I love how people say PS has no games when Battlefield will be on both. And PS5 just got both Ratchet and Returnal. But what was the last Xbox exclusive? Who can tell me? Internet points if you can guess. So then even Dan Stapleton came out and actually defended that person, saying, oh, it's just an honest mistake or whatever. Like, come on. Right? Anyway.
Thank you, Guy, and thank you, Typhus. I really appreciate the support. What I am not denying is that there are negative Xbox posts. There are tons of negative Xbox posts out there. There's negative posts for everything. If you are looking for negativity, you're going to find negativity. There's my thumbnail doing this. That's used as evidence. That's about native resolution on the Xbox One versus PlayStation 4. And it was a problem that got fixed because of those criticisms. And that image is from 2014. A lot of the evidence brought up is from 2013 to 2015, aka the Xbox One era, that resulted in the Xbox One X and a complete shift in strategy from Microsoft towards an improvement, which hopefully we start to see a regular cadence of releases, still one of their big criticisms, starting next year. This year was...
So we should just accept that the games media just being shitting on Xbox all the time, or like the negative articles all the time, all these kind of things about even good things that they turn into negatives because they make things better. So we should just, that's what it's for, right?
Pretty good though. There are tweets about exclusives being bad, and then 9 years later, a tweet about how Final Fantasy 16 is a good get for PlayStation. The sentiment might seem hypocritical, but you could probably go back a decade and find something I've changed my stance on too. My problem is like the gap in some of these posts. Like, okay, so you got one from 2014.
Destin, you were literally using those posts and articles in your last video from that same time period. So you can use it to try and make your case, but not when people send you that stuff. Like, it doesn't make sense. You're even not allowing things from February.
In 2015, which I'll bring up in just a second if you're watching live. But if you go and read those articles, they're positive. And then you have one that's like a 9-year gap where somebody said something 9 years ago and then said something different 9 years later. It's just like, and the Final Fantasy 16 grab turned out not to be a great get for PlayStation, according to Square. Anyway.
Yeah, but how many articles were there about that? Right? Bolt Alpha Wolfpack earlier hit us with a $10 super chat. Sorry, I was probably distracted with the thing. So have his back while he calls the followers insane people. Yeah, it's like, I don't understand what he expects there. Like, you know, he's basically shitting on a lot of the people that he's trying to have a conversation with, right? And his following, but then he like gets upset that they don't like it. You know,
people change their minds is the point I'm trying to make. And Xbox needs to keep changing people's minds too. And I think they're going to continue to do so. What's not going to prove Xbox's greatness to anyone is digging up tweets that were up for a few hours from months ago and dogpiling on that person for months or years to come.
Tell us what it is.
Especially
Give us the
when
example that you keep referring to,
that
Destin.
person, and I have to be careful because I don't want to like out anybody, but yes, I'm subtweeting a little bit. Like, that person is very positive about Xbox, and like there's one joke made, and it's just so unfortunate to see the backlash. The result of that is people stop talking about Xbox. So
maybe they shouldn't be so sensitive or shouldn't make stupid tweets in the first place, or like if they do, be able to handle the criticism behind it. Don't play the victim here. The whole victim thing is just absolute horseshit, right? I made a bad post and then people attacked me for it. Woe's me, right? You made a horrible point in the first place. Therefore, people come out and they will call you out for it. Then you go and tuck your tail and run and hide, but based on the fact that people didn't like your take. That's the energy you're giving here. Earlier, he said, what I don't like is that people think I don't have a right to be different. You were literally calling the people that disagree with you insane. You are doing the same thing, but to a massive amount of people. Yet, when they say, no, we actually are justified here, he's like, no, that's not allowed. You can't say that. I disagree. And then they're like, I'm unsubbing. He's like, why were you ever here in the first place? I'm allowed to have my opinion. Well, so are we, bro. So are they. So has everybody else has been pointing out this stuff. So are the people that disagreed with whoever it is that you keep referring to that made that post. You put it out there for social discussion, it's going to get discussed. There's no victim there. Yeah, if there's like stuff that goes beyond, hey, uncalled for, right? Uncalled for, no excuse, all that kind of stuff. But too often the games media plays a victim when they make a bad point, or they make a bad post, or they say something stupid, or they come out there and they're like, oh, like, how dare you criticize me? Oh, you're just conspiracy theorist. oh, you're just rage tweeting. No, we're just pointing shit out, bro. Like, grow some fucking cojones and take some criticism. It is what it is. At least have a good discourse back on it. And if you want to defend yourself against it, actually go out there and defend yourself against it and don't sound like the victim.
You've taken somebody that talked about their love for Xbox, love for the Series X, excitement about the Xbox brand, and like you made it something that they don't even want to talk about anymore. Well, I can't speak for them, but like I know how I felt when I posted the thumbnail. I just got very quiet about Xbox for a long time because, well, the fan base doesn't like me. I guess I shouldn't talk about Xbox anymore.
That's
right?
So weird, man.
So
like we've been criticized.
Even I still did it.
Some of our community and people didn't like some of our takes before when we've been critical on Xbox. People say they unsub or whatever. We just fucking move on and cover the next thing. Like, it just is what it is. Why are you so ultra sensitive about how people perceive your takes? It's just like, if they don't like it, that's my opinion. But next week, you're going to have a different conversation, and maybe you like my opinion on whatever that is. Like, you go tuck your tail and run and hide for years because people didn't like your thumbnail.
Anyway, like I talked about, man, Killer Instinct was really, really fun. But it's just like, how is that helping the Xbox brand? Like, just lambasting somebody for making a bad joke that they deleted and took down. It just sucks to see.
Who are
and
you
it happens
talking about?
It happens more than you realize. It happens to me with PlayStation.
We need
right?
context,
the
bro.
PlayStation fan base hates me, like the really strong fans, and yeah, PlayStation lawsuit, non-video.
Oh my god. Oh, like Destin, nobody actually hates you. They hate your takes sometimes. And most of the time I like your takes. In this case, I hate your take. It's dumb. It doesn't make any damn sense. You're coming across as too defensive and you're defending IGN, and even IGN was defending themselves in your post in a way that was very disingenuous as well. And you're acting overly sensitive about people's feelings that made post and then people talked about it. That's social media, dude. Like, people are going to be critical and on things that they don't agree with. That's just the way it is. Like, you're going to tuck your tail and hide every time something doesn't go your way or people don't like your opinion.
If you're talking about me making a video, I had a death in the family and I haven't made that video yet. I posted publicly about it. That's why I haven't made the video. It's on a list. Sometimes I miss stories because I have a life that I'm dealing with, but people don't give a shit about that stuff. You don't. You just want to know what's actually going on. I'm not using that as a defense for not making the video, but that's why it wasn't made. IGN did make a big article about it, though. Anyway.
I don't even know what he's talking about.
Xbox knows about all of these criticisms, that they need to get on the ball with regular... Jesus.
This one person in his chat, I agree with, and this person's actually named Gary and Troll. They said, Destin, why are you explaining yourself? Just do your thing. Yeah, like, you're not helping yourself in this situation at all. Like, just do whatever it is you do. But, like, this weird, like, ultra defensive thing, and, like, especially with IGN and Games Media and stuff, it just comes across like, it's not a good look.
Xbox knows their shortcomings. They know that they need to get on the ball with a regular release cadence. They just had a massive shakeup in management to address that problem. 2023 was a very positive year for Xbox. 2024 and beyond is looking great for Xbox also. But in 2020, the Xbox Series X launch year was pretty light. Saw the delay of Halo Infinite and there were no console exclusives at launch. 2021 felt like they finally hit their stride. They had IGN gave Forza Horizon 5 their game of the year. I loved the Halo Infinite campaign, and multiplayer seemed really, really strong. And then 2022 had a string of misfires with a few gems near the end, like Pentiment and High on Life were two that I really liked at the time.
Right. High on Life came out this year.
Lost my spot. I should probably just read this to get through it. I'd even throw As Dusk Falls in there, which I saw a lot of positivity around, and I actually ended up liking more than I expected. But Phil Spencer, I believe he called 2022's release calendar a disaster, and they had an emergency meeting to address that problem.
Okay.
They knew it had to be fixed, and 2023 was a lot better for Xbox, and it seems like 2024, now that they own Activision, could be a major year for them, in addition to all the leaked stuff that we saw. I only talk about all this because I feel like there's this idea that 2022 was an amazing year for Xbox, and it just wasn't. Like, there were some good games that came out, but it was a rough year for the Xbox brand.
Yeah, we all were in agreement pretty much on that. There was some that didn't think, but yeah, okay. So again, like, he's talking about years and stuff that aren't current events, and yeah, a lot of the articles make sense according to the ones that don't.
And the leadership team knows that. Even the start of 2023 was frustrating.
I'm sorry. I can't anymore. Oh God. I can't continue. I just can't. It's just such, like, talking around the issue, never 100% addressing the issue, pointing to things in a defensive way about colleagues and IGN itself and games media, calling people insane that believe in this thing, that pointing to evidence that you even yourself admit that there's validity there, but then it's thrown out the window at the same time. Like, I don't understand the point of what he did. I don't understand the point of this whole live stream and everything he was doing there. It just shows extreme victim mentality. It shows the feelings of ultra defensiveness to the games media, in which we are pointing out the issues of what they should do. What they should do at IGN and other games media outlets is look at the sentiment and realize the reason why people may feel this way, and then look at it from a outside perspective, an objective look, and be like, what have we done to create this feeling? Why does a large amount of Xbox fans feel like their website has an agenda against us? Why does that feeling exist? It's not because we're fucking insane. It's because of the amount of things that have happened over the years to cause that in the first place. So instead of acting like this defensive, sensitive pansy, actually come out there and just look at it and be like, well, maybe we should just hashtag do better. But when you ask them to do that, they call you a conspiracy theorist. When you ask them to do that, they say you're rage tweeting at them. They block you because they can't handle any kind of criticism about their work, because that is the culture that they have within themselves, that they can't take the heat. They can put out what they want. They expect us to take it as fact. They expect us to believe what they say is the way that we should perceive gaming. That's the way that we should adopt and just feel that they are 100% right because it's their opinion. Their opinion matters more than ours do. We are the insane ones. Instead, you could look at it like, hey, maybe we should broaden our covers. Maybe we should look at it. Maybe we got to, like, rethink how we focus. Maybe we need to hire more people that like Xbox, actually, because, you know, we don't have very many on our staff, right? Maybe we should actually look at some of these articles that we keep reposting every fucking day that's a negative post about something that's really shouldn't be negative in the first place. Maybe we should actually look at why this whole sentiment exists instead of blaming the people that feel that way in the first place. The victim mentality from them, which is the people that are actually causing this, is ridiculous. Dan Lazaro with the 5 said he's trying to control what people are thinking and saying with the guilt trip. X posts from 2020 don't matter, but Xbox releases in 2020 does. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Even talk about like, oh, these people made posts back in February and they're being used like, but you're using stuff and choosing when and where it's valid to make your conversation and points. Like, you can't keep talking around yourself. You can't keep talking about this stuff. And the mere fact that you felt the need to even make that video or to touch on it was a defensive move towards IGN. It was a defensive move towards Games Media, feeling like you thought it was insane that people felt this way in the first place. Pretty much attacking the fans of Xbox that have felt this way. Meanwhile, you act surprised when people don't like it. You work for them. You work for IGN. And you're one of the ones that I do like that works for IGN. But this is a horrible take because, in a way, you're like kind of defending some of the bad practices that happen in games media. And that's the problem. Some of the people that work at IGN are just complete assholes and idiots. And I'll say that. Max Scoville, moron. He's an absolute asshole on social media. I've seen new Dan Stapleton is that way as well. Like, some of these people I just can't stand, right? They get way too defensive. They just instantly block people that have anything to say about anything that they do, or when they even point out simple mistakes. And this is the same mentality that goes on. It's out of control within games media, where biases and preferences have run rampant. And it's not just games media, it's in all media, really. But we're pointing out these because it's having more of an effect on one brand than the others. It's making it harder for them to succeed. It's making it harder for people to potentially get sequels to some of these games that we want, because they are being diminished in quality and value, because they are being accepted as something that they are not. They're better than what they're being accepted as. And that's the problem at hand, right? It's just, it's easy to point to all these different things that have happened over the years, but there's a reality to the fact that these things have an effect. So when they say, if you don't like the one person's take, just stop reading them, right? Just stop reading them. So earlier I had mentioned that awesome community member had actually shared some stuff with me, and I want to kind of bring that up now. Because there's actually been research and studies done on this. And thanks to Nerd Propellant for sharing this with me earlier on DMs. But I'm going to bring this up. There was actually a study done on basically the impact of game reviews on gaming, on the perception of a game that's being played from players, right? And this study was done in a way to where they played one game, right? And then some people were given positive reviews to read before they played it. Some people were giving negative reviews to read before they played it. The people that played the game, that read the negative reviews before they played it, then were asked to review the game themselves. And they were more negative to the same people, to the different people that were asked to review the game after reading positive reviews about it. So positive reviews, negative reviews, play the game, give your own review, right? The people that read the positive reviews left more positive reviews. The people that read the negative reviews left more negative reviews after playing the same thing. It has influence on the perception. These things, it's what I call hive mind, right? And I'm going to bring up something that Nerd Propellant had said in the DMs, because it was very kind and sent me this stuff. He said, figured I'd share. I think the Xbox tax discourse needs some fine tuning to make any headway. It's all about the social dynamics, and there's actual research to back this mechanism up. The gist is that the studies show that when the discourse around a game is bad, player experiences are perceived as bad, even when they control for emotional responses to the game experience. The reason is due to how human memory works, which differs from how people think it works. This is the exact situation that leads to a small echo chamber of reviewers in a social media bubble discussing the review experience and getting steered towards bad scores for Xbox games. The gist, again, he pictured to me in the here says, we present a study examining the effects of review text on I'm trying to change this image here real quick. Okay, we present a study examining the effects of review text on player experience. The review text was manipulated to be either positive or negative in tone, either relevant to the subsequent gameplay or not, and derived from either an authority or peer. So basically, it's either like a professional game reviewer or a community member, right? Both reviews from both of those types, right? Our results show players who read the negative text rated the game significantly lower than players who read positive text. The text had to relate directly to the game to produce biasing effects. So it couldn't be like necessarily like stuff outside the game when they're talking about negative things. It has to be directed towards the game. The authority of the source, being whether it's an expert or peer, being a community member or a professional reviewer, did not produce different biasing effects. The effects could not be solely attributed to changes in mood as a result of reading the text, and negative text has a larger biasing effect than positive text, which means you need a lot more positive stuff to, as opposed to negative stuff. Like negative stuff has a larger impact, right? And then this one here, in an online community, this negative effect can snowball as users who are influenced by critic reviews may in turn post negative comments online, influencing an even larger user population. As this cycle continues with new users reading and being influenced by the negative press, the bottom line of a game or an app in terms of commercial success could be negatively affected. And this was a study done from people at a couple universities. I actually had downloaded it here. There's actually two different studies that are included here. Let's see here. I got both of them. Is this the same one? Okay. All right, here we go. This is a different one. It's very interesting. I'm going to read these to you. Hold on real quick. My phone's going off. All right. We're probably going to be going for like another 10, 15 minutes, babe, if you're listening. I'm just going to get through these real quick. I'm looking insane right now. Yeah, I got a lot of different stuff going on. I know I do look insane. Sorry. All right. So this is one that was done by Ian J. Livingston from Activision Blizzard, right? And Leonard Knack from University of Waterloo, and Reagan L. Mandrick from University of Saskatchewan. So the basic gist here is that they were trying to get a general. They did all these things all about like to see how it affected their moods as well, using like brain stuff like sensors and things to like determine like arousal and all this kind of stuff, right? So it's very, very interesting. So there's actual like brain chemistry and things going on here with how these things had an effect, right? So there's more in science than just like perception, right? The results, I'm just going to read kind of through some of the results because a lot of this is really confusing. The text balance affect perception of game quality. Consistent with our findings from our previous study, Players who read positive text rated the game significantly higher than players who read negative review text. Consistent with the previous work, we were interested in whether the game ratings differences could be explained by mediating changes in a player's mood. Perhaps the players reading positive text were put into a more positive mood and then enjoyed the game more than players reading negative text, thus rating it higher. We asked players to rate their balance and arousal 3 times prior to reading the game review, after reading the game review, and after playing the game. So are the ratings differences reflected in objectively measured player experiences? The main goal of the present study was to determine whether the game ratings differences are reflected in differences in player experience during play, or whether the differences are a real rationalization of similar play experiences with differing review text. They go into the science of everything they did, which is very sciencey and shit, like sensors and all this stuff. And basically, here's the thing, okay? There are 4 main results to take away from the findings. This is done from university professors and also somebody at Activision Blizzard. Reading positive or negative game reviews influences subsequent player ratings of game quality. The ratings differences cannot be explained by changes in the self-reported player balance, but may have been mediated by player arousal. Increases in self-reported arousal after playing were significant for players who read positive reviews, and marginal for players who read negative reviews, resulting in a between-group difference in self-reported arousal post-play. There were significant increases in the sciencey shit and the Hazlitt sciencey shit ratio when playing the game over reading the review text, demonstrating the sensitivity of these signals to measure player experience. There were no differences in any of the physiological measures between those who read positive or negative reviews, suggesting that player experience did not change as a result of reading review text. Meaning what they were detecting basically was that their experience was the same, but their perception of it was not. But that ratings differences were a post-play rationalization of experience with the previously read reviews. So they read the reviews previously, they play it, and then they rationalize their experience with what they had previously read. So therefore, somebody says, this is lacking in this when they play, and then they reflect on it. Yeah, that was lacking in that, when they may have never had that thought in the first place, right? So the let's see. The first 3 results are consistent with previous work, while the 4th resolves a question left unanswered by previous work. We focus our discussion on the contributions of game-related pre-play and play experiences on resulting opinion about a game, the potential impact of our results on industry practices, and the research opportunities in this space. We conducted this work to shed light on an unanswered question. Does reading positive or negative game reviews affect player experience? Previous work had shown that reading positive or negative game reviews affected player perception of game quality provided by a game rating, and showed that these differences were not mediated by changes in a player's mood. Our work replicates these results, but also showed that reading positive or negative reviews did not affect player experience during play of the game itself. So if players who read positive text did not experience the game differently than those who read negative text, why did they rate the game significantly higher? We feel the game ratings are not indicative solely of the player's experience, but are actually a cognitive rationalization of the experience in the context of the previously read review text. This does not mean that players are under a false impression of their experience, or that review text wins when there is a discrepancy between the review context and their experience. It is possible and quite likely that players who read negative text would subjectively characterize their experience as worse than players who read positive text, indicating that the rationalization of experience with the influencing reviews affected not only the perception of game quality, but also the perception of the play experience. That measured player experience does not make the reflective difference in experience any less real to a player or any less true. It does mean that players who read negative reviews decided that they liked the game less than those who read positive reviews, not because of differences in play experiences, but in spite of no differences in play experience, this lack of difference in play experience after reading game reviews has important impact for the games industry. Impact on industry. Current review methods used in the game industry include game reviews from both professional and amateur critics, and discussion forums where players can discuss their opinions and experiences. These textual channels offer players a freely available source of influential reports, which can influence player perception of game quality. The game industry is known for releasing games to critics prior to release. As our results show that reading reviews, especially negative reviews, biases the player's perception of the game. Game studios should be careful of critical receptions prior to game release. It is tempting to believe that a good player experience will outweigh negative buzz surrounding a game, but we show that this may not be the case. Even though experiences of the game was not different, players who read negative reviews were still more critical in their perception of the game's quality. Our findings can also be extended to other marketplaces where the exposure of reviews and ratings is becoming more prominent. For example, the Apple App Store prominently displays user ratings and comments right on the main app page for each app. Our results suggest that these ratings may adversely affect the perception of quality of those products for users who read the reviews prior to using the app. Although these ratings often come from users of the apps and not professional critics, our previous work revealed that the authority of the review source did not matter. Players were influenced by both game reviews and by user comments. Developers need to be aware of the impact these reviews and comments have, not only directly on their sales, but also on the experiences users have with their products. In an online community, the negative effect can snowball as users who are influenced by critic reviews may in turn post negative comments online, influencing even a larger user population. As this cycle continues with new users reading and being influenced by the negative press, the bottom line of a game or an app in terms of commercial success could be negatively affected. That's why people want fair and don't want preferential treatment towards certain brands. That's why people are asking for more objectivity. That's why people like us are asking for that, right? Because these things have an effect. It's not a simple thing as like, just don't read that person's take. Because these things largely have an effect on the larger aspect of gaming. It can determine the success of games. It literally can. If you have a community that all of a sudden objective or non-objectively, just taking media's word for it, like Destin there said, Call of Duty's bad without playing the game, right? That is the perception. Therefore, it becomes the reality to many people. Therefore, they're less likely to try it or potentially buy that game. Now, when they do the same thing towards Xbox, it has an effect as well. I still say that part of the reason why Hi-Fi Rush was potentially praised as much as it was because it shadow dropped. None of these people had a chance to pick it apart or let their feelings and stuff develop before the game was released. It shadow dropped. It came out, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, what's this? It's amazing, right? And rightfully so, because it was. But a lot of times these people get these feelings in their heads, they get these feelings in their hearts and their minds, and they got these biases going on that does affect things. And those effects can have ramifications to the rest of the industry, to the community, which then takes those things, they let it snowball out of control. A hive mind mentality spreads. All of a sudden, a great game, which many can see as a masterpiece because they can look through this stuff, is now determined to be mediocre. Because they said so. I'm against that shit. I want everybody here to be able to think for themselves, see past it, because unfortunately, this is not changing. There is no answer to this. I feel like the media is too far gone. I feel like all media is too far gone. I feel like games media itself is inherently always going to have biases and preferences. And if it's not attacking Xbox, when all of a sudden, even if the games community does inherently start swaying more towards Xbox, at that point, then is just PlayStation the victim? Or is Nintendo the victim at this point? I know who's not the victim. It's not games media. At the end of the day, it should be fair and even coverage across the board, and that's all that people are asking for. I want games media to do better. I think a lot of us want games media to do better. And when we point out the inconsistencies or the contradictory things that are done revolving certain brands and platforms that themselves even acknowledge exist, saying that things are bad, we want them to acknowledge it so they don't do that shit again and they do better. That's all we're asking for. No reason to come out with some kind of delusional conspiracy theory slight that you're trying to make everybody sound insane, where you're trying to say, oh, these people are all nuts because they think this whole thing is this. No, it's just reality of the situation. Coming out as a defensive pansy about this whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. IGN needs to do better. all games media needs to do better as well. And then at the end of the day, as gamers, we all benefit because the communities will benefit, because the games will benefit, and good games will be celebrated like they should be, instead of nitpicked apart and overly criticized for ridiculous aspects that are not evenly judged for the same reasons for other games. Other games get free passes because of those same preferences and biases towards things that could have been better when the community and the games media could have pointed it out more. It shouldn't take the community later realizing, oh shit, this is actually bad or this is broken, and then having all the games media having ignored it to be able to realize that this was an issue. The games media has what they should be for. They are given these opportunities. They are supposed to be people talking about these things and giving relevant information and being kind of a way for us to find out more information about what these games are. Not some person's self agenda about social issues. Not somebody's agenda based on capitalism. It should be based on how the game is, the game that is in front of them. When you sit down to play a game, what is the experience that I am getting? Not what is the experience am I not getting? Anyway, that's all we got for today. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I'm losing my voice now because we've been live for a while. But I really appreciate each and every one of you who have tuned in for this stream. I hope I made some sense. To Destin, no hard feelings. I know I picked your ass apart on this on this thing. At the end of the day, I just think you're completely wrong on it. And I think you should be hoping that the games media is more reflective of what the game community needs, not what your feelings are. But at the end of the day, I hope the gaming still keeps getting better and amazing. 2024 is going to be incredible. I'm still going to watch the Game Awards and have a blast watching it because I'm looking forward to the announcements and all that kind of stuff. And I think we can all still celebrate gaming and see past a lot of that bullshit that's out there. Anyway, have a good one, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again. If you do want to check out more content on the channel, come out and hang out on Monday for Fun Speculation Podcast at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Then we got Fun Pop, which is our movies and TV show. Excuse me, the TV show podcast at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Thursday, PM of the PM at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then Friday's Xbox Ultimate at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And I hope you all have an amazing night. Take it easy, everybody. Peace out.